Good morning, everyone. So the meeting of the Arizona Board of Regents was called to order yesterday afternoon before convening into executive session. And today's public portion of the meeting is scheduled until 12:30 p.m. Live stream of the public meeting is available on the public YouTube channel at the ABOR live link. And we have a full schedule, so we will try to be mindful of time today. During each of the regular board meetings, the board conducts a call to the audience when members of the public are permitted to address the board regarding issues related to board governance. Due to the virtual nature of this meeting and the processes put in place to address COVID-19, the call to the audience has been conducted via written submissions. The submission form has been available on the board's website and through links on the meeting notice and the agenda since Tuesday, April 6th, 2021. The board has received all of the submissions. If members of the public were unable to submit, then we would ask them to use the contact link on the ABOR website to submit any additional questions or comments to the board. Because of the diversity of issues presented, Regents will not respond to the written submissions during this meeting. The submissions from the members to the public will be recorded and referred to the appropriate university or board staff for follow-up if necessary and if contact information is provided. The board is informed of the outcomes of the staff efforts to respond to the concerns submitted. Forms submitted will become part of the public record. With that concluded, our first item on the agenda is the adoption of the consent agenda. This is items 10 through 28. And does anyone have any conflicts to declare on the items scheduled for consent? Okay, seeing none. I move that the board approve items 10 through 28 as listed on the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? The motion does carry. At this point, we'll move on to the Finance, Capital, and Resources Committee with Chair Regent Taylor Robeson.
Thank you, Regent Manson. The Business, Finance, and Resources Committee agenda covers items 1 and 2. Items 11 through 17 were just approved on the consent agenda. And I would like to briefly mention the tuition hearing and workshop that we recently held. Our tuition hearing was held last week, Tuesday, April 6th, that allowed for public comment on the tuition proposals. The hearing was set up as a virtual hearing. 6 individuals signed up to speak at the hearing, and we had approximately 100 viewers through the live stream. We also received written comments from the public, and we greatly appreciate the feedback and the input from those who took the time to provide their comments. Then a tuition workshop was also held last week on Thursday, April 8th, to discuss the 2021-2022 tuition and fee and housing and dining proposals. This special meeting gave the Regents an opportunity to take a deeper dive into the President's recommendations and gain a better understanding of the request that's before us today. As we all know, in these unprecedented times, our universities and our university presidents are working diligently to ensure that our universities are running as efficiently as possible, and that importantly, we are committed to access and affordability, and that we compare favorably to our peer universities and other market forces. The proposals today that we're considering reflect those market realities. The presidents are proposing no tuition increase for resident undergraduate students, which will be the second year of no increases for resident undergraduate students. Despite the many uncertainties created by the pandemic, we are all grateful that the presidents have taken this bold step to provide, in particular, our resident students financial relief and as much certainty as possible for the upcoming academic year. In addition to no undergraduate tuition increase, the board and our universities continue to be dedicated to a model of high financial aid. This model allows Arizona's public universities to provide a place for any Arizona resident that meets our admission standards. Much of the gift aid awarded is from the university's operating dollars. In fiscal year 2020, our public universities provided nearly $1 billion of institutional aid to students with financial need and other meritorious students. All told, approximately 81% of our undergraduate students receive some form of financial aid. And on average, resident undergraduate students pay about 1/3 of the published price of tuition. And I want to emphasize that although tuition is just one source of funds used to advance our strategic initiatives, we have become much more reliant on tuition revenues as it makes up a greater share of the university's operating budget. And this is happening nationally. So stagnant state funding has had a great impact on our universities, and we rank very low nationally in the amount of state funding to support higher education. Frankly, we haven't recovered from the cuts that our system incurred after the Great Recession back in 2008 and the succeeding years. Our universities have done a tremendous job of operating with declining state support while maintaining accessibility and affordability to our students. With that, let's move on to agenda item 1. Setting base tuition and mandatory fees, college fees, differential tuition, program fees, class fees, and other academic fees, as well as resident housing and meal plans for the 2021-2022 academic year. We will have Lorenzo Martinez, the ABOR staff and university presidents will be available for questions. I will ask each of the presidents to briefly comment on their proposals. And let's go ahead and start with Dr. Crow from ASU.
Thank you, Regent Taylor Robeson. Our proposal is consistent with our tuition logic, which is to not raise in-state tuition for undergraduate students by more than 3% per year. This is the 10th year that we've lived up to that policy. We also have, as you stated, a low tuition, high financial aid policy, which means then that our proposal for all tuitions this year, not just resident tuition, all tuitions at Arizona State University, resident, non-resident, graduate, undergraduate, and international students is no tuition increase. And the reason that we're proposing no tuition increase is, as you stated, because of where we are in the pandemic and where we are with levels of uncertainty and where we are with other things. It does not mean, however, that this is not a huge financial responsibility and undertaking for the university. This no tuition increase comes at a time when operating during the pandemic has greatly exceeded our resources. We've heard these rumors that people think that somehow the universities are now being financed by the federal government. We're being assisted by the federal government on a one-time only basis, which is giving us some relief, but it's not providing for us to be able to move forward. So our tuition proposal is very simple. No tuition increase for any student coming to Arizona State University. And I'll also just state one additional time that our tuition plan going forward is to maintain the logic of no tuition increase for Arizona students of more than 3% per year going forward into the future. So that's where we are, and that's our proposal for this year for tuition.
Thank you. I'm going to turn now to Dr. Chang. I'm not seeing Dr. Chang on the Zoom. Provost Stearns, do you know, is Dr. Chang joining us?
I thought she was. I will check for you.
Okay, well then while we are checking, why don't we then turn to Dr. Robbins from the University of Arizona.
Thank you, Regent Taylor Robeson. As Dr. Crow mentioned, we also have a zero increase in tuition for our in-state undergraduate students. We have very modest 1.4% increase for other students and 3% for our medical schools and veterinary schools. I think it's a pretty simple, straightforward proposal that we put through. We've had several meetings about it, and we feel good about the balance that we're providing to our students and families. And I agree with President Crow about the federal government providing more money. We have benefited from CARES Act money that have helped our students tremendously, but that money will be running out. So I think that next year when we come back, as we get the economy going again and get our classes going back in person fully, that we could probably forecast there will be tuition raises next year. But as for this year, we're very happy to do what we did last year and keep tuition low for our students and their families.
Thank you. I'm going to circle back to NAU. And Lorenzo or John or Provost Stearns.
Yeah, thank you. There might have been a confusion about the start time, so I believe she will be joining us as soon as possible. I apologize.
Okay. Well, we can proceed. We can, Regent Manson, I'm going to look to you as the chair today. We can proceed with ASU and U of A and then circle back to NAU when President Chang arrives, or how would you like me to proceed?
I think at this point, let's go ahead and proceed with ASU and U of A and hope that President Chang can join us prior to the end of that.
Okay. Thank you. And before we move to any votes, I just want to look to the regents and see if there's anybody who has any comments or questions. I don't see any hands raised. So then let's go ahead and proceed with the votes. And I'd like to point out that the motions before us today do not include existing tuition or mandatory fees charged to students if no changes are recommended, and the Arizona Financial Aid Trust, which is automatically calculated at 1% of the resident undergraduate tuition rate. So if there are no objections, we will have 3 motions per university, and by statute, a roll call vote is required on the tuition and the fees motions. We'll take one university at a time and vote on all of their proposals. With that, let's move to the tuition proposals. Motion 1, Arizona State University resident and non-resident undergraduate and graduate base tuition and mandatory fees. For mandatory fees, since increase the existing undergraduate student program fee by $5 per semester, $10 per year to support programming initiatives, clubs, and organizations. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there questions or comments? Chair Manson, we have a motion and a second.
Thank you, Chair Taylor Robeson. Suzanne, could you please do the roll call vote?
Thank you, Regent Manson. Regent Taylor Robeson,
Aye.
Regent Schutman,
Aye.
Regent Ridenhour,
Aye.
Regent Duval,
Aye.
Regent King. Aye. Regent Mata,
Aye.
Regent Rusk,
Aye.
Regent Manson.
Aye.
We have 8 ayes, Regent Manson.
Thank you very much. Based on the roll call vote, the motion does carry. Regent Taylor Robeson.
Moving to motion number 2, continuing with Arizona State University, I move that the board approve ASU college fee, program fees, and other academic fees as requested by ASU in its proposal and presented in the executive summary. This includes recategorize the undergraduate college fee for Herberger Institute campus immersion students from college fee level 3 to college fee level 4, and establish 10 new graduate program fees in the College of Health Solutions, Strength and Conditioning, College of Nursing and Health Innovation, Regulatory Science, Teachers College, Teacher Certificate online, College of Law, Human Resources and Employment Law, including online, College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, Women and Gender Studies online, College of Public Service and Community Solutions, Crime Analysis and Policy Advocacy online, and School of Business Marketing Certificate online, and Real Estate Certificate. And increase 10 existing program fees in the College of Health Solutions, Audiology, Communications Disorders, and Nutritional Science online, Herberger Institute, Architecture and Design, Thunderbird School of Global Management, Global Affairs and Management, located in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C., and School of Business Accountancy and Taxation, and for other academic fees, establish a seat deposit in the College of Law for Master of Sports Law and Business. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments? Madam Chair, we have a motion and a second.
Thank you. Suzanne, could you please do the roll call vote?
Yes, Chair Manson. Regent Taylor Robeson,
Aye.
Regent Schootman,
Aye.
Regent Ridenhour,
Aye.
Regent Duval,
Aye.
Regent King,
Aye.
Regent Mata,
Aye.
Regent Rusk,
Aye.
Regent Manson.
Aye.
That's 8 in favor, Regent Manson.
Thank you. Based on the roll call vote, that motion also carries. Regent Taylor Robeson?
Thank you. The third motion is the ASU student housing and meal plans. This item does not require a roll call vote. I move that the board approve the 2021-2022 residence halls, leased apartments, family housing, and meal plans for Arizona State University as requested in its proposal and presented in the executive summary. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? Madam Chair, we have a motion and a second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion does carry. Thank you.
Okay, now I'm going to move to the University of Arizona resident and non-resident undergraduate and graduate base tuition and mandatory fees. For the University of Arizona, I move that the board increase tuition by 1.4% for new non-resident undergraduate students at all of the university's campuses entering fall of 2021 on the university's guaranteed tuition plan to $35,821, and for the non-resident undergraduate students not on the guaranteed tuition plan to $33,739, and resident graduate students to $12,106 at the main campus and $11,705 at the Sierra Vista campus in associated additional locations. An increase in tuition by 0.7% for all non-resident graduate students to $32,290. For the College of Medicine at the COM Tucson, increased tuition 3% for first-year resident students to $34,588, and 1% increase for first-year non-resident students to $54,722. Second through fourth year students at COM Tucson will see no increase. At COM Phoenix, College of Medicine Phoenix, increased tuition 3% for all resident students to $34,588, and 1% increase for all non-resident students to $54,722. Increased tuition by 2% for first-year veterinary students starting fall 2021 to $45,900 for resident students and $71,400 for non-resident students. For UA's global campuses, increase the upper range of tuition rates by $950 per term for a range of $4,500 to $6,450, depending on country. For mandatory fees, establish a new sustainability fee in the amount of $10 per semester, $20 per year to support sustainability projects on campus. And I'll just note this fee does have the support of the associated students at the university. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, Madam Chair, we have a motion and a second.
Thank you. Suzanne, could you please do the roll call vote?
Yes, Chair Manson. Regent Taylor Robeson,
Aye.
Regent Schootman,
Aye.
Regent Ridenhour,
Aye.
Regent Duval,
Aye.
Regent King,
Aye.
Regent Mata,
Aye.
Regent Rusk,
Aye.
Regent Manson.
Aye.
Regent Manson, we have 8 in favor.
Thank you very much. That motion does carry. Regent Taylor Robeson?
Thank you. The next motion is for the University of Arizona program fees, class, and academic fees. I move that the board approve the University of Arizona program fees, class fees, and other academic fees as requested by the University of Arizona and presented in its proposal and the executive summary, except for categorizing the sustainability fee as a mandatory fee. This includes establish 5 new undergraduate program fees in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, School of Family and Consumer Sciences, and School of Natural Resources and the Environment, College of Social and Behavioral Sciences, School of Information, and College of Sciences, Chemistry and Biochemistry. Increase undergraduate program fees in the Undergraduate Honors College. Establish 7 new class fees in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, CALS Animal, and Comparative Biomedical Sciences, College of Engineering, Material Science, College of Science, Geoscience, College of Social and Behavioral Sciences, History, College of Fine Arts, School of Art, and Eller College of Management, MBA Distance Education Network Program. Increase 2 class fees in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences and the College of Engineering. Modification of an existing class fee in the College of Science, Speech, Language, and Hearing Sciences from strictly laboratory support to include lecture and discussion, such as hands-on engagement, case studies, and field experiences. There's no change in the amount of the fee. It's currently at $25 per semester. And an increase in 2 other academic fees, both one-time fees, a freshman enrollment fee from $425 to $450, and a transfer enrollment fee from $150 to $175. Both of these fees will begin in the summer and fall of 2022. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Madam Chair, we have a motion and a second.
Thank you. Suzanne, could you please do the roll call vote?
Thank you, Regent Manson. Regent Taylor Robeson,
Aye.
Regent Schootman,
Aye.
Regent Redner,
Aye.
Regent Duval,
Aye.
Regent King. Aye. Regent Mata,
Aye.
Regent Rusk,
Aye.
Regent Manson.
Aye.
Regent Manson, we have 8 in favor.
Thank you very much. Based on the roll call vote, that motion does carry. Chair Taylor Robeson, I see that President Cheng has joined us. Could we go back to the NAU tuition items?
Yes. President Chang, we offered President Crow and President Robbins an opportunity to provide a quick overview of the tuition and fee proposal. So if you would do the same, please proceed.
Thank you, and my apologies for not getting the updated time on my calendar. I want to thank you all for the opportunity to comment on NAU's tuition setting for the coming year. I appreciate everyone's commitment to NAU during the past year, seeing the significant impact COVID-19 has had on our students, faculty, and staff, and I'm grateful to the many in our community who have had deep sacrifices made in support of NAU, allowing us to keep our campus operations open. This tuition proposal is primarily a reflection of where we are. As we come out of the global pandemic, many of our students and families have been impacted deeply. For this reason, and for the second year in a row, NAU is holding the tuition flat and not increasing undergraduate tuition or proposing any new mandatory fees or fee increases. In addition, NAU is continuing the pledge guaranteed tuition program for the 13th year in a row. And these various components of our tuition strategy are obviously not a sustainable model, but it is a proposal that is right for the time as we recognize the many challenges ahead. The NAU Pledge program provides certainty to students and their families by guaranteeing a tuition rate for incoming undergraduate students for 4 years. And this is our largest population of students, and this guarantee is an important promise we make and prioritize each year. The Pledge program holds tuition and mandatory fees for incoming resident undergraduate students on the Flagstaff campus at $11,896 for the second tuition cycle. Graduate tuition, which has long been unattended to, is below our undergraduate tuition rate at this time, and we recommend an adjustment to our graduate rate, an increase of 5% for all campus-based students, Flagstaff and statewide. The tuition proposal for graduate programs will help us grow opportunities, strengthen programs, and continue to expand the research programs necessary for a high-quality graduate experience. All other tuition rates for undergraduate and graduate students will be held flat, including no change in online rates. NAU proposes no mandatory fee increases for the upcoming academic year and continues efforts to reduce class fees. Our new undergraduate program fee, one is proposed to eliminate fees paid by students in the undergraduate dental hygiene program. This program fee proposal reflects our efforts to remain transparent in our tuition and fee setting and ensure that students can leverage financial aid support for program fees and that provide resources to administer these higher cost programs. Finally, housing and dining adjustments reflect the real costs of services and amenities. Housing has been adjusted to better stratify the amenities received into housing tiers from 17 to 5 tiers. And we've listened to our students' needs through this process and built in full costs of laundry to reduce the unforeseen costs they sometimes don't plan for. Our proposed increases in housing has an average of 4.45%, and this is accompanied by a 2% increase in the meal plan, reflecting the minimum wage increase in the city of Flagstaff. This year's tuition setting cycle is not about new initiatives or infrastructure. We're focusing really on acknowledging the challenges that we all have been through, the resilience of each of us and our students, faculty, and staff, and then moving forward. We're committed to student access and affordability, and that is the theme for NAU today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, President Chang. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the NAU proposals? Seeing none, with respect to NAU's base tuition for the 2021-2022 academic year, I move that the board, for all graduate students at the Flagstaff campus, increase tuition 5% to $11,004 for resident graduate students and $26,994 for non-resident graduate students. For graduate students at all other NAU sites, which includes NAU Yuma, Yavapai, and statewide, increase tuition 5% for a base tuition of $10,596 for resident graduate students and $25,992 for non-resident graduate students. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Seeing none, Madam Chair, we have a motion and a second.
Thank you. Suzanne, could you please do the roll call vote?
Yes, Regent Manson. Regent Taylor Robeson,
Aye.
Regent Schutman,
Aye.
Regent Ridenhour,
Aye.
Regent Duval,
Aye.
Regent King,
Aye.
Regent Mata,
Aye.
Regent Rusk,
Aye.
Regent Manson.
Aye.
Regent Manson, we have 8 in favor.
Thank you very much. The motion carries. Chair Taylor Robeson.
Thank you. Continuing with Northern Arizona University, I move that the board approve NAU's one program fee as requested by NAU, as requested in its proposal and presented in the executive summary. This includes an increase in the undergraduate program fee in the College of Health and Human Services Dental Hygiene. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, Madam Chair, we have a motion and a second.
Thank you. Suzanne, could you please do the roll call vote?
Yes, Regent Manson. Regent Taylor Robeson,
Aye.
Regent Schutman,
Aye.
Regent Ridenhour,
Aye.
Regent Duval,
Aye.
Regent King,
Aye.
Regent Mata,
Aye.
Regent Rusk,
Aye.
Regent Manson.
Aye.
Regent Manson, that is 8 in favor.
Thank you very much. That motion does carry. Regent Taylor Robeson.
Thank you. The last item for NAU is residence housing and meal plan rates for 2021, 2022. And this does not require a roll call vote. I move that the board approve the 2021, 2022 residence halls, leased apartments, family housing, and meal plans for Northern Arizona University as presented in its proposal and in the executive summary. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Madam Chair, we have a motion and a second.
Thank you very much. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion does carry. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair Manson. Item number 2 is a review of a multiple year employment agreement for women's basketball head coach at the University of Arizona. I'm going to ask President Robbins to present this item.
Thank you, Chair Taylor Robeson. I'd invite Dave Hickey to present this for the university, please.
President Robbins, Regent Taylor Robeson. It's very exciting for us to bring forward a request for from the University of Arizona for a full board approval of women's basketball head coach extension for Adia Barnes, our women's head coach, as described through the period ending in April 30th, 2026. This is a proposed 2-year extension to the current contract as it stands. It's been just an amazing turnaround of our women's basketball program over the last 5 years, really remarkable. Competitive growth, excellence of our student athletes across the board, academically, our community engagement. The growth of the program has, again, really been remarkable. It is now really truly considered among the nation's best. As many of you recall, playing for the national championship just recently. We have a dynamic leader, an incredible head coach, an alum, arguably the greatest player to ever play here at the University of Arizona, and now to come back and be our head coach. We're very proud of what she has done with the program. Really made it a program of excellence. So again, we're proposing some new terms, a new base salary that's outlined. We've adjusted some of the retention components by eliminating it. We have not adjusted any of the annual performance incentives, either on the academic performance side or the competitive athletic side. And so we look forward to an opportunity to present that here today and hopefully for full approval. Thank you for your consideration on that. And I defer to any questions or other comments by any of the regents, or again, President Robbins.
Well, Dave, thank you for that. And President Robbins and Dave, you have a lot to be proud of. I think there's now a lot more and many new fans of the University of Arizona's women's basketball program, and Coach Barnes really represents the university well. I couldn't be more proud and more supportive of this agenda item. Do we have any other comments or questions from any of other regions? Okay, well, seeing none, I move that the board approve the second amended multiple year employment agreement for the University of Arizona women's basketball head coach Adia Barnes as described in the executive summary. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Regent Manson, we have a motion and second if you'd like to call for the vote.
Thank you very much. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion does carry. And just personally for me, I would like to congratulate Coach Barnes on her successes at U of A, both on and off the court. And I will admit that this was the very first women's basketball game, NCAA, that I ever watched. And I watched 2 of them and they were spectacular. So thank you for introducing me to that.
Yes. Well, this concludes the Finance, Capital, and Resources Committee agenda. I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Manson.
Thank you very much. So the next item on our agenda this morning is the election of officers. the board is asked to elect officers for one-year terms beginning July 1, 2021. And Jennifer Pollock will present this item. Jenny?
Thank you, Regent Manson. Members of the board, it is that time of year to elect new officers for a term beginning on July 1st. Pursuant to our board bylaws, the offices up for election include the chair, chair-elect, secretary, treasurer, and assistant treasurer. Pursuant to our bylaws, the most recent past chair serves as treasurer, and the voting student regent serves as assistant treasurer. The proposed slate of officers for the upcoming year include for chair, Regent Manson, for chair-elect, Regent Duval, for secretary, Regent King, for treasurer, Regent Penley, for assistant treasurer, Regent Dave. So the board office is asking the board to elect officers for a one-year term beginning on July 1st, as discussed in the executive summary. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, so seeing none. Do I have a motion to elect officers for a one-year term beginning July 1, 2021, as discussed in the executive summary?
Chair Manson, I move to elect officers for one-year terms beginning July 1st, 2021, as discussed in the executive summary.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion does carry. Thank you very much. Next, the board is asked to ratify authorization for the universities to initiate trademark infringement litigation against Sportswear, Inc. Jenny, you're also going to present this item.
Thank you. And I see that Executive Director Arnold has a question, so just wanted to defer.
Oh, sorry. Thank you for pointing out the hands to me.
Thank you, Regent Manson. Before we leave the election of officers, if I may, just for a second, I know Regent Penley couldn't be with us here this morning, and we will give him a gift and celebrate him a little more in June. But since he's not here, I thought maybe I would just take a second and express my appreciation for the time he's put in his chair over the last 2 years. He did double duty as chair. He has been an extraordinary leader for the board and for me personally, just a terrific mentor and coach and friend. So I look forward deeply to serving with you, Regent Manson, and the new elected officers, but wanted to just thank Regent Penley. And along those same lines, even though he is here, I'd like to thank Regent Schubman as well, who's been the chair and then the post chair for the last 2 years and chair-elect before then. So he's been a critical officer for the board for the last 4 years and really has done tremendous work for us. And again, for me personally, really mentored me through my first year as the executive director and has become a close friend and someone I deeply admire. So thank you, all of the officers of the board, for your service. And again, I'm sure we'll talk more about it in June when we're in person, but just wanted to take a moment. So thank you.
Thank you, John. You know, I will second those words of appreciation. Larry, I think, should get combat pay for the 2 years that he had to be president during the pandemic and everything else. So he did a tremendous job, and I thoroughly enjoyed working with three of you as well. Ron always has great thoughts and great input, as does Larry and you. So I really appreciate that group of people as well. So thank you very much. Okay, so now we'll go back to you, Jenny.
Thank you, Regent Manson. Regent Manson and members of the board, pursuant to board policy 1-109, Arizona State University and the University of Arizona are requesting ratification of a trademark infringement lawsuit filed by all of the universities in the Pac-12 against Sportswear Incorporated, which sells clothing and other items adorned with unlicensed university-owned trademarks. Just as some background, Sportswear Incorporated operates 2 websites, Vintage Brands and Prep Sportswear, through which it sells sports apparel and memorabilia. And although they market their goods as relating to specific universities, including ASU and U, Sportswear Incorporated does not have a license to use either ASU or U Arizona's trademarks. Universities of the Pac-12 conference, all of whom are experiencing similar infringement, have agreed to pursue litigation against Sportswear Incorporated jointly, and costs are being shared with regard to that litigation. Litigation was filed in the Eastern District of Washington on April 7th of this year, 2021. Pursuant to board policy, ASU and U Arizona sought and received tentative approval from me as board counsel following notification of the board chair to initiate the litigation, and that is subject to this ratification here today. So ASU and U Arizona are asking the board to ratify the authorization to initiate a trademark infringement lawsuit against Sportswear Incorporated. We're happy to answer any questions you may have, and I have general counsel from U of A and ASU here as well.
So are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, seeing none, I move that the board ratify the authorization for Arizona State University and the University of Arizona to initiate a trademark infringement lawsuit against Sportswear Inc. as discussed in the executive summary. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion does carry. Thank you. So we are now going to move on to the Academic Affairs and Educational Attainment Committee. And if you guys will hold on a minute for me to get to my next set of documents, we will move there. All righty. So I am going to go to, hold on just a minute, I am stuck again. All right, so today we are asked to review and engage in a discussion with universities pertaining to the first-time student retention report. But first, we're asked to approve the appointment of 7 Regents professors from Northern Arizona University and the appointment of 6 Regent professors from the University of Arizona. Northern Arizona University is asking the board to approve the appointment of 7 Regents professors effective July 1, 2021. Provost Stearns, will you present this item, please?
Thank you. We have 7 Regents professors to present for the board, all outstanding and nationally and internationally known. Scott Getz is coming from our School of Informatics, Computing, and Cyber Systems, and a member of the Center for Eco-Science and Society. Fantastic experience with NASA, leading over $100 million grant for the Arctic Boreal Vulnerability Experiment and for the JEDI project, the Global Ecosystems Dynamic Investigation Project that has sent remote sensing to the International Space Station, and mentoring our graduate and undergraduate students in world-class research. We're extremely proud to have him. Candidate number 2 is Janie Ingram, who is a longstanding member of Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry and a member of Navajo Nation. She is the principal investigator for our over a decade-long partnership between NAU and the Arizona Cancer Center, which is the NIH-funded Partnership for Native American Cancer Prevention. And she's also well known for conducting community engagement research with Navajo Nation on environmental health and uranium contamination in their lands. And she's well known for mentoring a number of Native students in her lab and encouraging a number of Native students to undergo and enter into scientific disciplines related to chemistry and environmental health. And our third candidate is Bjorn Korndorfer, who is the endowed professor of religious studies in the Department of Comparative Cultural Studies and is the director of our Martin Springer Institute. And so he has a worldwide influence in his work with Holocaust and genocide studies, critical men studies, memory studies, and long-standing work in current conflicts related to refugees, mass violence, genocide, etc. So again, an international reputation and a commitment to training our next generation in enhancing moral courage, tolerance, reconciliation, etc. Extremely proud of his work. The next candidate is Ichi Lo, and Ichi is a professor of the Department of Biological Sciences and also a member of the Center for Ecosystem Science and Society. again, internationally known in ecology and large-scale quantitative modeling, so big data informatics as well. Very highly cited, over 45,000 times, member of many societies, authored a textbook, et cetera, and well-known for carbon cycling and offering courses to students in the United States and internationally. Next candidate, Michelle Mack, another Department of Biological Sciences member and also in the Center for Ecosystem Science and Society. Well-known climate science researcher in the Arctic, studies carbon and nitrogen cycling in tundra landscapes up in Alaska and elsewhere. Highly cited, multiple publications in Science and Nature, and again, well-known mentor of students in the research lab, committed teacher and mentor. And our next candidate is Ted Shore, another member of the Department of Biological Sciences and in the Center for Ecosystem Science and Society, also internationally known for Arctic carbon and climate research, multiple publications and citations. It's an author of textbooks that are well known and well used. And our last candidate is Miguel Jose Yacaman, who is a professor in the Department of Applied Physics and Material Sciences, and a member of MIRA, the Center for Material Interfaces in Research and Applications, also internationally known in nanomaterials and electron microscopy, tens of thousands of citations, hundreds of publications, et cetera. And we're extremely proud of our researchers at NAU. He also teaches a 100-level physics class and loves it, and mentors and encourages students and underserved students to enter the sciences. Elected a fellow of Material Research Society, American Association for Advancement of Science. So again, multiple awards, multiple fellowships, and we're extremely proud of all of these faculty for both their international research expertise and their dedication to mentoring the next generation in the sciences. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you, Provost Stearns. Are there any comments or questions from the regents? Or President Chang, did I see your hand?
Yes, I would just like to express my pride in this set of Regents professors. These are truly the best and the brightest at NAU. Our process started at the beginning of the academic year with a campus-wide call for nominations. There is a process that does not allow for self-nomination. These are definitely our tenured NAU faculty that have embraced the process, and that these recommendations then go through multiple levels of review internally and require external support letters as well. So I just wanted to express to you how prideful we are of the work that is being done here and the connection to our undergraduate and graduate students' educational experience.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the appointment of 7 Regents professors for Northern Arizona University as discussed in the executive summary? Anybody, a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion does carry. I do have to say that it is one of the my saddest moments that we do not actually get to meet in person with the Regents professors at a reception when they are appointed or awarded. Those are some of the most interesting conversations we have during the year, because these people are truly dedicated to what they do. And I really enjoy those conversations. I'm really looking forward to getting back to that in person. At this point, we're going to move on to the appointment of the Regents professors for the University of Arizona, and that is 6 Regents professors, and I believe Provost Folks is presenting this item.
Thank you so much. It's such a delight to be here and present our nominations for Regents professors in I too wish that we could celebrate with them in person, but it's not to be this year, but let's at least recognize how amazing they are. Next slide, please. Dante Loretta is our first nominee, and he serves in the Lunar and Planetary Lab and has had some pretty significant press coverage this year because he is the principal investigator of the OSIRIS-REx mission to collect material from the asteroid Bennu, which you may recall seeing on the news. Dante's worked on this project for some 20 years, so this really has been an extraordinary feat of engineering might and scientific inquiry. Of course, the project isn't complete. The materials don't come back from the asteroid for another 2 years. So we've got a long way to go before we learn all that we can from his work. He's been an extraordinary team lead. He has engaged undergraduate students and graduate students deeply in his work. And so he's an extraordinary researcher and an extraordinary educator as well. So we're very proud to present him to the Regents for this recognition. Next slide, please. Sonia Kalina is also extraordinary. She is fondly referred to here on campus as a double hitter because she's managed to establish an extraordinary footprint in 2 completely separate fields. She's done brilliant work in theoretical phonology and also in translation studies. And probably her work in translation studies has had the most direct impact in our communities because she developed an evaluation tool to assess the quality of translations that are used in the healthcare sector, which is particularly relevant to us as a Hispanic serving institution and serving people here in Southern Arizona, where we have a very large Hispanic population. And she's been recognized widely for this work, which has been very high impact. So we're delighted to bring Sonia Kalina to the board for this recognition as well. Next slide, please. Marwan Krunz is a member of our Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering and provided pivotal groundbreaking research outputs, which really provided the concepts for statistical multiplexing, which in turn has been utilized to deliver Zoom meetings to us. So we could all be personally grateful to Dr. Krunz for his work in this field. You know, in many ways, he should be the face of the pandemic, because without his work, the world really would have fallen on its face in many ways as we sheltered at home. So it is more than timely that we bring Dr. Krunz to you for recognition of his extraordinary and groundbreaking work in this tremendously important field. Next slide, please. Stephen Archer has done just fascinating and extraordinary work on the interactions between grasses and woody plants and in relation to soils and climate and land use. To do this work, what was really groundbreaking around his work was the integration of remote sensing technologies, GIS, a great geographic information system mapping technologies, dendrochronology, and stable isotope chemistry. So he's brought together data from all of these disparate fields to really understand the interactions between grasslands, woody plants, and then to understand that in relation to soil quality, climate change, and land use patterns. And with that, he is now able to predict the consequences for sustainability on our grazing systems, on ecosystems, and to map out the surface atmosphere interactions that drive the temperatures for our climate. So extraordinary work at the interface of multiple fields have allowed him to really have profound impacts that will have lasting consequences for all of us. Next slide, please. Sally Marston is just a tremendous public figure. She's done groundbreaking work at the intersection of citizenship with public spaces and social reproduction. So the idea of how do concepts, how do thoughts, how do notions take hold in social groupings. And her work has really been critically acclaimed nationally and internationally, and she's written one of the most widely used textbooks in her field. We note here that she was honored with a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Association of American Geographers, which is the most distinguished honor in her discipline. And we feel that it's absolutely timely that we also recognize the profound impacts of her work. Next slide, please. And Ian Pepper has been with the university for more than 40 years. He is an extraordinary scientist and also just an amazing educator. He has a fabulous team of undergraduates and graduates who work with him. He works with the city on understanding environmental microbiology. He's worked at the interface of human health and soils and water and municipal waste for decades. But I would not be appropriately honoring him if I didn't also point out he has gained international recognition through the pandemic for his efforts to swiftly pivot the work of his lab to understanding how we can use wastewater-based epidemiology to track the spread of the coronavirus in our community. He's done this work not only in service to the University of Arizona, but also in service to Pima County. And for that, I am personally eternally grateful to him and his team. But at this moment, we're of course recognizing the many, many decades of work that built up to this moment where his skills and talents and expertise were profoundly important to the university and to the city and the county. And I think that's my last one, am I correct? Thank you very much. With that, I would like to present to the Regent these 6 outstanding candidates for recognition as Regents professors.
Thank you, Provost folks. Again, missing the opportunity to speak to them in person. I look forward to it at some point. Are there any questions or comments from the Regents? All right, seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the appointment of 6 Regents professors for the University of Arizona as discussed in the executive summary?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion does carry. We're very fortunate to have those Regents professors within our organization. So thank you again for bringing them to us and detailing their accomplishments. At this point, we are going to move on to the final item in the academic affairs agenda, which is the first-time student retention report. And Chad Sampson is going to present this to the board.
Thank you, Chair Manson. It is wonderful to be with the board today. Very grateful that the board would find time to have this discussion at its general board meeting. This item was originally slated for the Academic Affairs Committee, but due to the number of items on that committee agenda, it was tabled until this morning. If I could move to the first slide, I do want to spend just a moment at the risk of overstepping and talking about process with the board. I do think it's worth talking a little bit about how this report came about, because it shows the interplay of strategic planning, board decision-making, and reporting all together. Since 2005 is the earliest I can find a mention of a metric type activity around first-time student retention in the board's materials. But it was part of the original, this first-time, full-time, what used to be called freshman retention, has been a metric with the board as enterprise plan since 2008. It was reaffirmed in 2015. In 2019, at the urging of Regent Manson, the board asked that a special report be put together regarding first-time retention for all students, including part-time students. And we worked diligently with the universities to present that in 2019. And what was found was there was a number of part-time students, and there was a focus on part-time student retention. And there was a robust discussion with the provost at one of their earlier meetings in 2009 in academic affairs. Flash forward in 2020, the board adopted new enterprise plan metric, enterprise-wide metric targets. And those metric targets now include retention metrics for both first-time, full-time students, and first-time part-time students and on immersion basis. We also included the first-time student retention as part of our now annual reporting cycle. And it is worth noting the tremendous amount of work it takes the university's institutional research teams to work with our IR folks to be able to do this. And so we thank Laura, Shirley, Rubney, and T for working so hard to put this together. Thank you for indulging me as I walked you through how this report came about. One thing I do want to talk about before we get into the data is this is reporting on the first-time student retention for students who retained in fall 19, so fiscal 20. That means it does not include students from fall 20, which are the students that were freshmen at the beginning of the pandemic and returned, first-time students in the beginning of the pandemic and returned for another year in fall 20. So we will get that report, that information, and report it at the next scheduled report on first-time students. That said, I'd like to point out a couple of items in the report to the board. So if we can go to the next slide. The first thing that need to be said is that all three of our universities is first-time student retention is improving, and it is tracking with goals. Over time, it is improving. It has improved significantly since 2010, if you can see that in the report, but we continue to improve over the last 5-year cycle at all three of our institutions. While there is variance, and you can see the difference there on that slide, overall the trend is positive. Next slide. We are seeing, and as I just mentioned, an increase in the proportion of first-time part-time students. And it is worth talking about, and we have all four provosts on the Zoom, as well as the several student success leads for the universities to answer Regents' questions around this. But we noticed as we put this together, first-time part-time students are increasingly becoming part of the portfolio of our universities. They are at over 10% at ASU and NAU, and at over 20% now at the U of A, and want to talk about the intentionality of that.
Ted, could I make a comment or a question?
Yes.
And I'm wondering if we know what portion of that are students that are part-time because they are reduced by a single credit versus those who are actually only taking one class or two classes. So the difference between, is there a shift between students coming in first time taking only a class or two, or is it an increase of students moved into the, for instance, NAU's College Success Program, which reduces, takes 3 credits out of a student's NAU credits and effectively pulls them out of the first time full-time cohort.
Thank you, Chair Manson. I have a response, but I think I best let one of the provosts or all three of the provosts go first, or 4, I guess, to respond to that. Mark, Liesl, do you want to respond U of A, and then possibly Mark or Nancy, and then Diane?
Happy to. I think Casey Akitas is with us, and she is deeply familiar with the data, and so I'd like to call on her to address this excellent question.
Sure. Thank you, Provost folks, and thank you to the Regents for having us today. We have a program that we created in 2013, actually, and we worked closely with Regent Leonard at the time to create our Schedule for Success program, which is based on our U of A math and the cut scores that we have for U of A specifically, knowing that math is such a critical component of our students to be able to be successful. And so we've grown that program over time so that the students that are participating in that program they're registered for 12 units, but one of those units is a success course that helps them to work through their math and be up to college math level at the place that we need them for their degree program. Many of those students do register for additional units in the second 7 weeks. So they are ending with the appropriate number of units to allow them to be on progress for degree completion. But we do start a number of those students in the Schedule for Success program because of the benefits we've seen with those students being able to progress and get into that college level math for their major. So most of the students are at just right below the full-time level. We do have a number of students, of course, that are also taking just a course here and there, but that number hasn't changed too much. Those are usually in the low hundreds. And then we do have students that have opted to be main campus students, but are taking some of their classes online. And so they're not in full-time units at the point of our census count, which is when this is taken.
Thank you, Casey.
You're welcome.
Are there any of the other provosts wish to comment, or shall we just move on? So essentially what you're telling me is that this is an increase in the growth in those students that are only slightly below, are put into a program to that eliminates them from the first-time full-time cohort, but maintains them as essentially full-time students at the university.
That is correct. And they are full-time for financial aid purposes. And then we work very closely with them, with their success coaches as part of Schedule for Success to help them to get into that next level of coursework at the second 7 weeks so that they are continuing to progress for degree completion.
Thank you.
Regent Manson, if I may.
Yes, please.
Thanks for the opportunity to comment on this. This growth, of course, includes both our online and our campus immersion. And the online is disproportionately part-time, whereas the on-campus is not. And so the growth here is largely due to us enrolling more and more students, especially from our corporate partners, Starbucks, Uber, Adidas, and many other corporate partners. And most of them are, because they're working individuals, are enrolling part-time so that they can progress toward their degree successfully. We provide them with all the supports to enable that. And where possible, we migrate them to full-time as their schedules allow and as their work permits them to do so.
Okay, so that is functionally different than what is being experienced at U of A.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Manson, I think Provost Stearns also wanted to respond.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Provost Stearns.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Regent Manson. And I apologize, I don't have the formal specific numbers of how the range of the number of credits has varied from our part-time, but I also know anecdotally in this past year that we've had some shift of full-time students going to part-time just because of the pandemic, because of the financial constraints that they've had. And we're proud that our retention for part-time is up 3%. I think that reflects the the drive of our students to try to hang on, and we're certainly trying to do everything we can to help those that had to go from full-time to part-time. So I think it'd be interesting to see what these numbers are next year, but we think we've got a superimposed issue of the global pandemic, and our first generation students, our Pell students, our underserved minority students, everyone has been so strongly impacted by this pandemic. But we'll continue to be there for them with all of our programs, again, to meet them where we are and try to get them back in to become full-time and to graduate.
Okay,
so thank you
very much. All right, thank you, Chad.
Thank you, Chair Manson. If I can go to the next slide. Just wanted to point out a little bit about the difference in the dichotomy between the first-time and the part-time students. You can see that there is a difference and this is high school GPA between your first-time and your part-time. As Casey and Diane have talked about their college success programs, you would expect that. You would expect to see that students with an incoming high school GPA may be encouraged to be part of these college success programs as opposed to the general admission for first-time students. Next slide.
Chad, I'm sorry, can I interrupt you? I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I missed two hands that were up in the air based on the view I had going. So President Crow and then Regent Shootman.
Regent Shootman's hand was up first, so.
Oh, okay, thank you. Regent Shootman?
Thank you, Chad. Just a thought and maybe a question is, as the complexity of student enrollment continues to grow, with them choosing so many multiple paths, have you given thought to whether all of this data the data being presented is actually reflective of what we need to look at to understand if there's any sort of attention needing to be paid to these different classes or different data that we're seeing? It's hard. I'm not suggesting I know how to do that, but just wondering if you and your team have looked at all of this changing dynamic and how it affects your data.
Chair Manson, if I can respond to General Shootman. General Shootman, that's a great point. We actually spent a lot of time in our little team thinking about this. And if you look through the report, you will see that we break down this the retention by first time, part time, also by modality, that it's whether they're online or immersion students, and then we break down by gender, by Pell, and by demographics, as well as by program, which is a little difficult to do because they are first time students, so there's a lot of them and not accepted into their program yet. But we do that in the report, and we try and highlight for the regions the different successes that you see there. For example, here you're seeing the difference in the full-time and the part-time on the slide in front of you, retention rate for first-time and full-time versus first-time part-time students. That doesn't mean we've got it right yet. We will continue to work with the universities and get their input and continue to present and refine, so we make sure that we are bringing the most important decisions and analysis to each of you. Hopefully that answered your question, General.
Thank you very much, Chad.
Regent Manson, can I add to that? Just
Yes,
real
absolutely.
quickly? I think as we look at universal learners and as Regent Shootman noted, the different goals that our students are coming to us with. You know, we very much historically have measured success by retention and graduation rates, and we need to look at what are alternative measures of success, and as regents, how do we track that? How do we determine if our universities are doing a good job with these populations that may not be on that traditional track? We're having a conversation with the universities right now about metrics around online students. How do you measure a quality program and success in an online program, and hope to bring that conversation to you in June. So these are very important questions that we're wrestling with right now, and that they're not easy. They're not easy. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Those are good points to be made. It has become more complicated, obviously. President Crow?
I'll just add, not adding to the complication, but to Regent Shootman's comments, but just in general, we have to enter this arena here with great caution, because what we're attempting to do here, we've had, for instance, a freshman retention goal of 90% freshman retention for a student that arrives directly from high school and enters our university. And no one is diverted to another program. No one is diverted to a 1 credit offset. If you are admitted to this institution from a high school in Arizona as a full-time freshman, that's a particular type of student for us. We think that that's an important measurement of both our ability to deal with high school students coming in, as well as our adjustment to them. And our adjustment to them is by modifying everything that we do, and we've seen some success. That's not even the same person as a part-time student. I mean, that's not even the same thing. And so and I think Chad's comments and the structure here reflects that, but it's really important that we have exact comparables so that we know where we are going and how we're doing and what progress we're making, because then that reflects back to the design of the relationship with the high schools, the preparation from the high schools, and so forth and so on. And so the notion of retention for part-time students, this is very complicated. I mean, we have 75,000 part-time degree-seeking students in our online program, some of whom are showing up directly from high school with no previous courses. We never had that before. For us, our goal with that is ultimate graduation across a completely different model, meaning it's a completely different thing, completely different process. And so, but I wanted to also, as Chad continues with this report, I just want to make sure that there's two other dimensionalities to this that are important. And one is that there's a federal issue, federal policy design issue relative to first-time, full-time freshman retention, which then becomes a comparative assessment between all universities and how we're doing in that perhaps archaic model. And it is a comparable between other universities. And then having said that, the 3 Arizona universities are among the only research grade universities that are completely egalitarian in terms of access. That means we bring in lots of B students also, as well as A students from high school. So our goals and comparisons against others around the country should be from those that are admitting the same level of students coming from high school. And in those, we're all doing better, and against those comparisons, accelerating, and I think about to leap out, in terms of being very high performers. And so I would just add that point that there may be some values there, but this is, at least when I look at these numbers, the notion of part-time, and all of a sudden we've got, online students blended into the data with on-campus students. And I think Chad was saying we have all the data and it's all parsable. We just have to be very careful that every comparison is apple to apple to apple, orange to orange to orange, peach to peach to peach. And right now we have apples and oranges and peaches in some ways all sort of blended together in this aggregate data. So we're just gonna have to figure out how to do that and how to present that.
I think that's appropriate. I think we have to figure out which of these numbers is, the federal issue is one thing that we don't control. How we compare them internally, we do control. And so we,
yes.
All right,
and I would add one other point just for other regions to think about as they look at retention data. So we've taken our retention up from the 70s, and this is all of our students, and we're approaching 90. And that's a huge achievement for the institution. But the single most predictive variable for freshman retention, there's 2 of them. Did you enter with an A average from high school? And if you did, you have a very high retention rate. And how many dollars did you spend per freshman? Those are the 2 most significant variables for prediction. Dollars do affect outcomes on every possible level. And I think Regent Rusk was asking about this the other day. Was there a correlation between dollars invested and outcomes? And the answer is unequivocally so.
perfect. Thank you very much for bringing those up. I think those are good things for us to keep in mind as we move through this. Chad?
Thank you, Chair. We'll move on to the next slide if that is okay. Obviously, you'll see the part-time students, and this has already been said, so I will not belabor the point. Part-time students look very different on where they're going. You can see for NAU and U of A, they are immersion students, and they're part of their college, as been said by the provost, their college success programs. And ASU, they are, as stated, they are coming through their online program now. But you can see the significant increase at all three institutions. Just from 2016, ASU went from 324 first-time part-time students in any of their programs to 1,600. That is significant. We take as points, because the provosts have made it to us before, we need to be very careful about blending these numbers. But what we're seeing now is a significant number of these first-time part-time students. So while first-time full-time is coin of the realm, and probably wrongly so, but it's coin of the realm in the national landscape, at a regential level, reporting out both first-time and full-time by modality is what we aim to do.
Madam Chair, this is Mark. I wonder if I may comment on this slide. The part-time, first-time students on online are much older than the students you see on campus immersion. The 124 who come to the campus tend to be typically in the usual age groups, whereas the ones who are coming online are students who did not go to university after high school, but at 25 or 24 or 23 are discovering that now they want to go get a degree. So there is a very fundamental difference between the nature of the student who is part-time online and as considered a first-time student versus the first-time students who are coming to campus.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
So-
no, it's a completely different student. I understand that.
It is, we are finding, if you look at page 16 of the report, it's really quite interesting. Provost Searle is absolutely correct. You've seen an increase in those over the age of 25 in part-time for online at ASU. They just in 1 year, they went from 461 over the age of 25 to 568. So that is a significant increase. But you are seeing ASU as well. The underage 24 and under they went from 832 to 1,057. So they're growing in all modalities. That did not discount in any way what Provost Searle said about it is a completely different student, but we're seeing age as well. Growth in both over 25 and under 25. So with that, we'll move to the next, unless there are further questions for us, we'll move to the next slide. Retention rates are higher for now. Moving on from the full-time part-time, unless there's other questions, just to round this out. Retention rates are higher for resident students than non-residents. This has been, but you've seen steady state or growth improvement in all areas. This is something that I think has been reported to the board multiple times. And next slide.
Chad, I think it's important to point out that this includes online.
Yes, it does. This is
the combination of online and campus immersion is not a very helpful for people to really understand the diversity of the students we were talking about that Executive Director Arnold pointed out and that President Crow pointed out.
That's my concern about the mixing of the apples, the oranges, and the peaches. And so we have a particular focus on resident students who arrive from high schools attending as first-time, full-time freshmen and their particular success, which is very different than anyone else.
Madam Chair, President Crow, Provost Searle, those are good points. We'll take those points. We do break them out on page 12 of the report for ASU between resident, non-resident, online, non-online. But for purposes of our presentation today, we did combine as the total first-time students, both part-time and full-time here. But we, in the future, it's tough to get all three institutions and then divide it 6 ways and have anybody be able to see anything on the graphs. And so we chose to use the total instead of multiple slides. But it's a point well taken, and we will consider it in the future. With the next slide, I also want to show retention rates are similar across Pell, non-Pell, and this is something to be celebrated, and is something that we think that the Regents should keep in mind, that the universities are taking in large number of Pell students, and largely they are retaining them equal to the number of students, non-Pell students. And Pell is often used as a proxy for economically disadvantaged or impoverished students. And then finally, retention rates are similar across the gender. We felt it necessary or important to include this slide because as we talk about enrollment, it is women are enrolling at much higher rates in college than men, and that is a national trend. But we want to show that once they hit our university shores, they do a good job of retaining them roughly equally.
But just to illustrate another data point, so on campus, it would be the opposite.
On campus, what would be the opposite?
Women have the higher retention rate, much higher, dramatically higher. And this chart does not reflect that because this blends in the online students, which are a very different group of people.
So Chad, if I'm not mistaken, the online versus immersion student data is in the report.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So regents have the opportunity to go through and see the differences between the immersion student rates at all three schools and the online rates at all three schools.
Yes. Yes, and Regent Manson, we're just figuring out how to report online versus immersion. We felt it important for this purpose, since they're all first-time students, to include them together. Again, the point is well taken that we can break them out, but if regents are interested, we do break them out, as you said, for all the institutions along part-time and immersion. Finally, the last is retention rates vary across race and ethnicity. You can see it. This is just for fiscal year 20. You can see that there are some good stories in this where you're seeing some improvement, but as of right now, we're still seeing a difference. By the way, this difference is seen nationally. This is not just an Arizona or our public universities issue. This is a national issue, but this is where we are pre-pandemic with regard to first-time student retention. And with that, that is that is our presentation. We'll happy to stand for questions.
Thanks, Chad. I appreciate that. Are there questions or comments from the regents? I know that this report, which you all have in your hands in a hard copy, is very dense. There's a tremendous amount of data in there. But it would be worthwhile spending some time looking at the specific, immersion versus online data that is there. It's interesting. Well, seeing no comments or.
Hey, Manson.
Yep.
I actually do have a question. I'm not sure if you can see them on your screen.
Okay. Regent Russ.
So first I want to say thank you to the board office for putting together the first time retention report. I think this is an incredible step to seeing what the student experience is actually like on a campus. Despite the difference between the immersion versus online, which is distinctified within the report, but I understand the importance here. I think there is 2 points here. One, I think there's a whole amount of metrics and units that we have to start looking at online, since that student group is significantly different from immersion students. So to me, that point is clear that it should be distinctified, but there's also so many metrics that have to go into online. So that is a later discussion, I think. But I did want to ask, particularly for U of A. So since the part-time students at the University of Arizona are more at risk than per se ASU's student population or NAU, since they're put into the Students for Success program, what is the ethnic makeup or the Pell Grant makeup of those first-time students in Schedule for Success?
Casey, do you have an answer to that?
Sure. Thank you, Regent Russ. I don't actually have the exact answer, but I will follow up with you. We have been tracking that, though, year by year since we started the program in 2013. And because that was one of our concerns, we wanted to make sure. And the numbers are pretty similar to what our incoming class characteristics look like. So there's not a disproportionate amount of one type of student or the other, but I will pull that for you and share that with you after the meeting for the most recent.
Thank you. And just to follow up on that, I think the fact that we are seeing such a diversification across the demographics within our immersion students who are first-time full-time, this should point to the board that we need to have a greater focus on these metrics that are diversifying across demographics, instead of solely using the Pell Grant as a proxy for demographic success. So while it can work as such, we see that there is a huge difference from just the Pell Grant success versus the demographic differences in first-time retention. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Regent Rusk. Are there any other questions or comments? Perfect. Seeing none. And I'm going to ask as we go forward, if you guys will raise your yellow hand, because I can't get everybody on the screen at once. If somebody's just waving their hand in the picture, I'm unlikely to see you unless you happen to be on my front screen. So I'm not ignoring you. I just didn't see you. At this point, this was simply a discussion item. I look forward to doing this again. And this concludes the academic affairs portion of the agenda. We are now going to take a what amounts to about a 15-minute break, and we will come back at 10:20. Thank you, and welcome back, everybody. So the next item on our agenda is the operational and financial review for the University of Arizona. Before we begin, are there any questions for President Robin, or any questions for me before we start with President Robbins? Okay, what I would like to do in this process, we have 90 minutes allocated for this presentation. I would like to suggest that regents use their yellow hands for questions or comments during the conversation, as opposed to trying to wait until the end and remember what we wanted to ask. So I will try and keep my eyes out and watch the comment section if somebody needs to nudge me that there is a question. So at this point, President Robbins, you have the floor.
Thank you, Regent Manson and Regents. I can't really see the screen. So if you want to ask me a question, which I would encourage you to do, I would please ask, just interrupt me. Just start talking, because I'll try to be focused on the slides, and I can't see everyone, obviously. So I would very much appreciate just interrupting me, because this is meant to be conversational. And I just appreciate the opportunity to update you on the state of the University of Arizona. I'm happy to report that we've not only survived the last year, but we're thriving. And in this short amount of time, it's almost impossible. I mean, I could take the 6 Regents professors that were just nominated and presented to you and talk about just their work, and I could take the full 90 minutes. It's an incredible place. Ironically, during this pandemic, using Zoom, I've gotten to know many more of our incredible students, staff, and faculty members, and to be engaged with them in a more efficient time. Of course, it's not how we all like to do it, but I've learned so much about the University of Arizona and the incredible talent that we have here and the remarkable things that we're doing. Unfortunately, much of what I want to tell you ended up on the cutting room floor. It's just the way it is. I just can't tell you everything I want to tell you. What I get to see every day walking around this campus and in these Zoom rooms is truly extraordinary. And I'm just humbled and blessed to be able to report on the collectiveness of the 60,000 members and the 300,000 alumni for this great university. So I'll go right into the slides. If I could get the next slide. That's another thing. I wish I could control my own slide, and I was walking around like President Crow does, and I can move back and forth, but I'll be asking for next slide. I'd like to start by respectfully acknowledging that the University of Arizona resides on the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of both the O'odham and Yaqui tribes. Next slide, please. So today, I'm going to share with you some important highlights for this last year. It's sort of like what we've been going through and what we've accomplished, and we're very proud of what we've done over the last year. But I also want to, and it'll include things, obviously, about our response to COVID-19. But I really want this presentation to look through the windshield, not the rearview mirror, into the incredible future that I think the university has. Maybe go to the next slide and maybe the next one. Yeah, there we go. So these are some of our numbers that I just wanted to start out and share with you. And in these areas that measure sort of an effectiveness and impact, we've continued many of the trends from previous years. In the 2 that are down, in employees and tuition revenue, we've adapted, I would say, through our furlough programs and other things to the challenges created by the pandemic. And that's a whole 90-minute discussion itself. Our degrees awarded are slightly down, and that's a change that's often accompanies economic downturns. But we also can correlate it to the different sizes of our incoming cohorts. I think nationally we saw that, about 23 or 4% of people just took a time out last year. and just did other things. But we're certainly proud, as we just had a discussion before the break, on our first year retention rates, which continue to improve. And one of the first things that I talked about in my first State of the University to the Regents. Next slide, please. So this slide, I just make some comments that less than a dozen universities in the United States fit the profile of being a top 20 public university in number of students that we serve, and a top 20 public in the size of the research portfolio. It's very rarefied air. University of Arizona is 20th in enrollment for public universities and 18th in research expenditures. So I think that puts a fine point on who we are as the University of Arizona. All other schools mentioned are in the top 20 publics in research expenditures and enrollments that we sort of compare ourselves to. Among those 11 universities, what sets the university apart, the University of Arizona apart? Well, I think it's opportunity and accessibility and inclusion of more students. On average, the other universities that we're sort of comparing ourselves to admit less than half of those who apply. The University of Arizona provides opportunity to 17 out of 20 students who apply. So I think President Crow said it's not who we exclude, it's who we include. And I think we have that same spirit and mission. Just for example, UCLA admits less than 3 out of the 20 students compared to the 17 out of 20 that we admit. It's an incredible school and an incredible opportunity for a few who make it. But the University of Arizona provides a top 10, top 20 experience and has 6 times more students admitted from our applicant pool than, say, for instance, UCLA. Among the other schools in both top 20 lists, none are recognized as a Hispanic serving institution. And obviously, we're very proud of that accomplishment. I just kind of reflected back that Chairman Penley asked during an OFR a few short years ago, what is the University of Arizona? And I think this represents a lot of who we are, keeping up with the most high achieving public universities without keeping out the citizens of Arizona we serve, among the excellence, but without exclusion. So it's very much what President Crow talks about. It's not who we exclude, it's who we include. In terms of number of students we serve, the amount of quality of research we produce and ranking among the 2021 U.S. News and World Report top 100 universities, we're tied for number 97 overall. And among the top 100 global universities, we're also tied at number 97. In terms of being available and accessible, we plan to support and advance the vast majority of those students who apply, even when their record has some deficiencies to suggest they may not be college ready. Next slide, please. We're very proud of the latest rankings, 40th among public universities as determined by U.S. News and World Report. And as I said before, 97th overall. As you know, reaching the top 100 in the nation was a goal of mine when I arrived. And this is a good outcome, especially during this challenging year. But we're clearly not going to let up. We're just getting started. We've got incredible plans for the future that we'll share more later in my comments. I also want to note that our move to number 7 ranked in online bachelor degrees, just behind ASU, number 6. I think it's when I got here, I knew what President Crow was doing in ASU around online and challenged our institution to invest more and grow our online program. So we're incredibly proud of being right behind ASU in the online space. And I think together we serve the citizens of the state of Arizona well with these programs, which also benefits the universities, obviously. Next slide, please. These are some of additional rankings that I wanted to share with you. As you know, our space science rankings place us among the world's best, and we're very proud of the continuing excellence that we have ranking in water resources, as well as our incredible MIS program at Eller. The photography MFA here is excellent. I think many of you know my son is an aspiring photographer, so I'm incredibly proud of that program. And part of a broader strength that includes the Center for Creative Photography. This cup I drink out of all the time is one of my favorite Yetis, and it comes to me from the Center for Creative Photography. And it's truly an international treasure that we have here. I had lunch with President Schaefer day before yesterday, and we won't get into the discussion with the regents over the creation of the Center for Creative Photography, but we had some good stories about how that all came about. But it truly represents an international treasure in the field of photography. We're also incredibly proud of the research conducted at the University of Arizona Health Sciences. And I always thank my friend Mike Dake for trusting in coming to the University of Arizona from Stanford. You've seen the impact that this work has done in the past year in response to the pandemic. And over 5 years, from 2015 to 2020, we've seen a steady growth in NIH funding, almost doubling. This includes the College of Pharmacy, which is ranked 8th nationally in NIH funding, and in the Blue Ridge Institute for Medical Research rankings, which are all very, very important. So all of our colleges in the health sciences under Dr. Dake's leadership, both of our colleges of medicine, nursing is really, really doing well. Pharmacy, we're about to announce a big naming gift for the College of Pharmacy, which we're so excited about. And the work that our School of Public Health has done has been extraordinary over the past year, but was doing great work even before the pandemic and will continue to grow and do great work in the future. Could I have the next slide, please? Our team in admissions and enrollment management have done simply an amazing job and incredibly important work over the past several years. And you heard Dr. Urquidez's comment earlier during the question session about retention rates in our programs here. And Casey is a wildcat through and through, and we are so blessed for her phenomenal leadership in going out and really letting the world know about how we're differentiated in the choices that these students have. So I'm incredibly indebted to Casey and her team. This includes bringing in an exceptional class this past year while adapting to the challenges that were presented to all of us during the pandemic. We're incredibly proud of the incoming first-year class this year, which was among the best academically prepared class and the most ethnically diverse we've ever had in the long storied history of this university. We also recorded the highest first to second year retention rate in the university's history, with 85.5% of our students retained from fall 2019 to fall 2020. These successes are thanks to the investment through the strategic plan. When we developed the strategic plan, this was one of the focuses that we had. In the 5 pillars, I always say that there are more initiatives in pillar 1, student success, than anything else. So I'm incredibly appreciative for everyone and their hard work around pillar 1 efforts. Even though we had to reduce some investment due to the financial strain on the institution, we continued to have programs focused on student success. And that effort and expertise by our admissions and enrollment management team is paying dividends and will continue to pay dividends. The story here is that the university is attracting and admitting a huge number of students, becoming more inclusive for everyone, while also having a highly achieving students choosing us. They have many choices. They're choosing to come to the University of Arizona. This balance is always going to be a critical part of our public research and land grant mission as we go forward.
President Robbins, can I interrupt you for just a quick question?
Yes.
So as I'm looking at 3.75 grade point or higher moving from 31 to 43% and top 10% of class moving from 16 to 23%, those would lead me to believe that U of A is becoming more exclusive. And so how do you take that data and match it with the accessibility admission rates of 85%?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, Chair Manson, but I think the numbers speak for themselves. We continue to offer programs that allow students who want to come to the University of Arizona to come here. I think that the success in the more academically accomplished students that are choosing the University of Arizona is a blend, obviously, since we're about 60-40, a blend of out-of-state students, and we can get further breakdown to substantiate what my answer would be. But I think that because of programs, particularly in space sciences, optical sciences, our health sciences, our growing engineering program, our incredible humanities and arts programs, I think more highly qualified students particularly from out of state, are choosing the University of Arizona to get their education. But we can get more detailed analysis, but that would be my answer.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. May I have the next slide, please? As you know, inclusion is one of the University of Arizona's core values. Seeing diversity as a strength is critical for our North Star and the success of this university. The more diverse we are, the better we're going to be. The cultural logos on this slide were developed by groups of students, faculty, staff, and community leaders. They've been created through team input to recognize the importance of cultural nuances. Each one includes 3 distinctive parts: cultural icons, the Wildcat brand mark, and a title that represents the expression or celebration of each of the cultures represented. Every icon has been thoroughly and thoughtfully developed from team input and recognizes the importance of our culture, our celebrated culture. April is APIDA Heritage Month at the university. The APIDA is part of a pan-ethnic meant to celebrate and honor Asian, Pacific Islanders, and Desi American heritage. In this context of advancing our goals in diversity and inclusion, I also want to remind you how proud we are that the University of Arizona is a federally designated Hispanic serving institution. Just a few months ago, we were named the Outstanding Member Institution by the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities. We're committed to the common cause with partners here in Arizona throughout the nation to accelerate Hispanic and Latinx college student success. This focus is critical because 26% of our undergraduate students identify as Hispanic or Latinx, and we're a university serving an extremely diverse state with large Latinx and Hispanic communities. Among HSIs in Arizona, the University of Arizona is in the top 3 for awarding undergraduate degrees to Hispanic and Latinx students. We want to be the destination of choice for our Latinx first-generation Pell eligible students. And we want to ensure that our students have the resources and the opportunities to move forward in their careers, including in the professorate. The leadership provided, the incredible leadership provided by Dr. Marla Franco, our Vice Provost for Hispanic Serving Initiatives, is evident in the university's role establishing a national infrastructure to strengthen pathways for Hispanic and Latinx students into the professorate, a means of promoting student success and pursuing our goals of a diverse and inclusive faculty. I want to also briefly note the work we've done to better recognize the diversity among our Native American students, for whom specific tribal affiliation and citizenship is critical to their personal identity. The legacy iPad system used nationally reports all Native American students enrolled at the University of Arizona, regardless if they are from more than one race. To improve on this, the Office of Admissions has implemented a new tribal affiliation database whereby Native American students now have the option to select a tribal affiliation by the use of a drop-down box that has all 574 federally recognized tribes and the 63 state recognized tribes listed. We're the only higher education institution in the country that has taken this step to acknowledge the sovereign status of different Native nations in the United States, and is part of the commitment by the Office of Admissions and Native American Initiatives. And I think this is really, really important for us to reflect on and focus on, because it's serving our students and giving them a voice of who they are. Next slide, please. We're incredibly proud of this recently announced ranking by Forbes as we serve Arizona. We're focused on making the university an outstanding place to work. The university was not even on the top 500 national list a year ago. And ironically, in this very stressful, very demanding, challenging year, we jumped to number 16 nationally. And I think that speaks volumes to the incredible work our faculty, staff, and our students have done over the past year to adapt to the pandemic, both in terms of instructional and research operation, and in terms of being flexible, working together in a collaborative teamwork, wildcat spirit, and care for our workforce. You just don't make these numbers up. We're being recognized as one of the best places to work in the state of Arizona and in the nation. This is an outstanding example of our core values of compassion, adaptation, and determination in action. Next slide, please. So it's obviously been very challenging to raise philanthropic money for all universities across the country. With a few months left in the current fiscal year, I think you can see from this slide, I just wanted to share with you that we have surpassed our FY20 total for gifts and commitments. This puts us on track for a strong post-pandemic recovery. I want to personally thank JP Rosniak and the University Alumni and Development and Foundation team for their continued work connecting donors with their areas of passion on campus. JP and I were speaking in the last few days, and he tells me, and I've heard it directly from donors myself, that the university's biggest champions have been with us throughout the pandemic. And I look forward to sharing news about new gift announcements in the coming months. And there are going to be two really major gifts. I alluded to one of them earlier that we'll be announcing in a few weeks and months. Next slide, please. So I think we were having some technical difficulties in the break, but we're truly a community of champions here. When the pandemic first hit, we weren't sure what was in store, but we were able to work together on campus, on Zoom, to persevere, to be resilient, and to return together. So I would love to play this video for you, and hopefully it works. I don't think there's any sound to this. Not sure that the video is working. Even sometimes when we do these in person, we have glitches.
This university has pivoted unlike any time in its previous 135-year history. I am so proud to be a part of the Wildcat family and all that we're doing here.
This is my song, and nothing can make it die. It's been so long, and it's stronger. I know why, and I wonder if you really, really know. That as long as I live, I will sing my song. That as long as I live, I will sing my song. That as long as I live, I will sing my song.
Okay, could I have the next slide, please? So I love that Wonder campaign. You know, when you go on these campaigns, everybody becomes a marketing expert, and they find reasons why it won't work. But Wonder makes us. Wonder makes us do everything we do. And I love in the sports games, and when we were at the Final Four, seeing our video up there compared to the other universities, and I was very proud of it. I think it's a very cool campaign, and I really thank Steve Moore and everyone who's had input into that. So, well, it's a great segue, because that I guess it was a drone shot down our beautiful mall and that beautiful grass that Chris Kopech. I kept thinking, who keeps this grass looking so good? And they said, you need to meet this guy, Chris Kopech. He's the guy that makes this campus look beautiful every day. And he's an incredible leader and has a great team. But as you all know, and I'll make some comments now about it, that mall has been converted to a place where thousands of vaccinations are given every day. And so I'll get to this slide. I mean, again, I could use the whole 90 minutes to talk about COVID. Just the basic science that's being done. You see in this picture, Dr. Bhattacharya doing incredible work there. But I think one of the keys early on was when Provost Folks and I talked about, we were on spring break when this all started, and said, you know, probably doesn't make sense for people to come back from spring break. Let's just go virtual. And in a very, very short time, people adapted. They were incredible to finish out last year. And this entire year has been incredible. But one of the things that the next call I made was to Mike Dake and Mike Abacassis, and said, you know, we've got incredible immunologists and virologists. We need to get to work, because one of the keys to this pandemic is going to be testing, lots of testing. And we're going to be at the end of a supply chain So we need to start making our own kits. We need to start focusing on antibodies. And I'll have to admit now, it was off base, but I thought that the infection rate was going to be a lot higher, a lot sooner. And I just thought, well, if you got antibodies, you can come to class. If you don't have antibodies, you can't come to class. Well, of course, that would have been a perverse incentive for people to go out and get an infection. So we kind of backed off, and I reached out to Rich Carmona, who everybody knows has been one of our faculty members, a Regents professor at this university for 35 years. And Rich and I had known each other from being surgeons, and I begged him, coerced him to come and lead this thing called ICS, Instant Command System. He did this when multiple times to all hazards events, most prominently with Hurricane Katrina, and we had him right here. So it was sort of manna from heaven that we could just reach out, and I'm so appreciative to Rich for coming in and setting up this ICS system. It was a little bit of a mix of culture, shall we say, to introduce this sort of government military type approach to dealing with a hazard, an all hazard. In this pandemic, I mean, we were in crisis. So we set this up, and it began to get a tempo, and we worked out our creative differences, as they say in Hollywood. And it transitioned into Chris Kopak, turning his attention away from keeping all of the infrastructure at the university running and making the campus beautiful, which his team is continuing to do, proving that they can walk and chew gum at the same time, and focused all of the energy on the ICS team. This decision not to ask students to return after spring break caused us to pivot quickly. We began planning immediately, weekly briefings, daily discussion, hours upon hours, late into the night, into the weekends. And I've been trying to figure out, how can I thank everybody who's been doing their regular job plus 2 or 3 other jobs over this past year. And I'm coming up short. I want to have a big celebration in the stadium when we can do that, and give everybody some sort of token of my recognition. But it's been an all-out, all-hands-on-deck effort. The creation of this test, trace, and treat strategy depended on COVID-19 research based on existing strengths that we had, incredible strengths in immunology, virology, and genomics. The antibody test developed by Janko Nikolic-Zukic, and you see in the picture here, Dr. Deepta Bhattacharya. Deepta and I go all the way back to Stanford. We collaborated in labs doing stem cell research back in the day, and he was here, and who knew? Every day at 3:00, every day, these scientists get together under Mike Dake's direct leadership and talk about what are we doing? Where are we? Let's keep moving forward. So the work has been recognized by Janko and Deepta in the highest publications, and they're media superstars. They spend all their time doing interviews now. The saline gargle test that many of you would be very happy. You swish a little saline and gargle it and put it in a tube for analysis, doing PCR. It's a lot better than getting a tube shoved up your nose. That was developed by Dr. Mike Warby, and you got a chance as a board to hear the work that he's doing along with his partners at ASU and NAU and TGen on genotyping of variants. But Mike saw this test in Vancouver, and he scaled it. And everyone is very appreciative when you have to get PCR tested, that you don't have to get a swab up your nose. And Provost folks recognized Dr. Ian Pepper, who is one of the coolest dudes you will ever meet, for his wastewater-based epidemiology. And Ian I always say I want to be his agent because I see a Dr. Pepper commercial in his future. Dr. Pepper, so misunderstood. We know, we understand Ian. He has been doing this work at the West Water Facility. It's one of the reasons why we're the #1 water program in the world, because of people like Ian. And I wasn't going to comment on the Regents professors when they were presented, but I always ask, why did it take us so long to recognize people like this? It's because we got limited number. It's like being in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. There's only limited number that can get in. But you saw the best of the best we've got here, and Ian is one of them. He's done tremendous work. The COVID Watch app, developed by a team led by Dr. Joyce Schroeder in partnership with a nonprofit launched by a University of Arizona alum who's now doing advanced work at Stanford, was a huge success. And we were the first university in the country to use this technology. So I'm very appreciative to Dr. Schroeder, to Provost Foltz for organizing all these people and helping us through all of this. Could I have the next slide, please? I may be running behind here because I may get carried away a little bit when I start talking about the science and the incredible work that these sciences are doing. But here's the mall, that beautiful video. Grass is getting a little worn, but cars out there all day, every day, into the night, through the weekend. And I've said many times this year how proud I am of how the university has responded to this pandemic. We're incredibly honored by the work that our faculty, staff, and students have done on this pod, this point of distribution for vaccination. It's the only way we're going to get out of this pandemic, is to get people vaccinated. Mitigating the spread of COVID-19 on campus and throughout using the aforementioned test, trace, and treat initiative. We're also incredibly honored to serve our community as a vaccination point of distribution. First, in very, very close partnership with Pima County, with Dr. Cullen, with Mr. Huckleberry, with Mayor Romero, and our local officials, beginning in January, and now as a state designated pod, working with the Arizona Department of Health Services, and Governor Ducey. So we're very appreciative that we were given the responsibility to serve as a state pod. Serving in this way, in my opinion, perfectly aligns with our land grant mission, serving our community. And we're really proud of the diverse population that we've served at this pod. We've been able to do this work thanks to the longstanding expertise and preparation from our faculty members and staff across the entire university. It really does take a village, and this exemplifies this. This includes faculty members in public health whose knowledge of emergency response has guided the pod's operation, and our emphasis on equity and effective communication out to the community. Let's be clear about it. There is work to be done here. There's a lot of vaccine hesitancy for good reason. We understand that, but we'll work through that. It includes the foresight of our ICS commander, Chris Kopak, who took over for Dr. Carmona. He's learned about the vaccine's need for cold storage early on. He saw this coming, even before any of these vaccines were approved. We had to store these, particularly the Pfizer vaccine at -80. So Chris got to work, and his team went over and built a whole freezer farm. And we worked with the county to say, we can store up to 1 million doses. Use us as the Fort Knox for these vaccines. And I want to thank Chris for his vision and his execution on that vision for building out that freezer farm. We've steadily ramped up the number of doses per day, and the pod has done an incredible job of serving all of Southern Arizona. Today, the pod has more capacity than we have demand in the community. That means we've been doing a really good job. We want to vaccinate as many people as we can, and we're sharing this message loudly. but we're also proud to have been able to reach so many people so quickly. So I think they're up to about 4,000 or 5,000 doses per day, and we're going to keep this thing running until we get as many people in Pima County vaccinated as we possibly can. We're probably, Giddings is on the sort of northern part of the drive-through pod. It's a walk-in facility. We're probably going to transition from this drive-through pod into the indoor site in Giddings to finish off the second doses. But I think our work is going to be done by the end of June. And I'm very proud that we're getting so many of our students vaccinated so that we can come back in the fall term, having people in football stadium, people back in our basketball arena, and people in the classroom. So we're really excited about that. Could I have the next slide? Maybe go to that one. Thank you. So you heard spectacular presentation at the research committee by Dr. Cantwell and President Crow. I again thank you for allowing us the permission to speak with and then to bring Dr. Cantwell down from ASU. She has done an incredible job leading our research enterprise. You can see from this slide that in 2020, we had $750 million of research expenditures. And I just want to point out that the FY 2025 ABOR goal was accomplished 5 years ahead of schedule. So what happens now? What are we going to do now? We're going to just sit back and coast for the next 5 years and say, yeah, we did what you asked us to do. We hit our target. No, we're going to keep the foot on the pedal. We need to operate and continue our mission in a world that's been challenged by the pandemic. But Dr. Cantwell got on this very quickly, and 80% of our labs were running right through the pandemic because she put in policies and procedures and got buy-in. We've done well expanding research in the past year. And it's certainly impacted our growth trajectory. Even in light of the fact that tenure and tenure eligible faculty is not expected to grow tremendously, we have the capacity to continue to grow our research enterprise to some level. But we have to ask, where does it level off? I mean, we can only do so much if we're not going to grow the professorate. Dr. Crow and ASU is growing very rapidly. We just aren't able to grow that rapidly. So there's going to be a diminishing return here. So how are we going to continue to grow this? Of course, I think Regent Shootman and Regent Reidenauer said when I got here, 1, you need to work on banner. 2, you need to work on marketing, communication, and tell the incredible story you got. 3, you need to get to $1 billion a year in research expenditures. And 4, you need to get the endowment up to $2 billion. So we're working toward those goals. We're not going to quit. But how are we going to continue to grow this research expenditure? We're going to go big. We are going to have big aspirational goals. We're moving more and more to invest in research support for larger, more complex proposals like OSIRIS-REx and these big awards, which has proven to have an incredible return on investment. Secondly, we're going to go corporate. We're moving to create new models of interacting with companies to include student interactions that both increase research dollars, but also focus on the Arizona economy. This is a good economic development strategy by training, educating, and hopefully retaining great students in workforce that will serve our state. And thirdly, we're focused on the fourth industrial revolution. We're really focusing our investments in research and growth on our strategic research futures associated with fourth industrial revolution domains. And it's right on target with the strategic plan that we developed. Next, please. So speaking of our strategic plan, one of the 5 pillars in our strategic plan, Grand Challenges, provides a roadmap for tackling critical problems facing society and leveraging these 4th IR advancements and our existing strengths that we have at the University of Arizona in research. It tackles pressing grand challenges in areas of space, human and intelligent systems, health, and natural and built environments. Adopted in 2018, our plan is a living document. It is one that the university leadership is adapting through the pandemic toward the healthier, more resilient future that we all need. The University of Arizona Space Institute is a driving force in advancing the University of Arizona's role as a world's leading university for space science, human and robotic exploration, astrobiology, exoplanets, research, space situational awareness research, and of course, planetary defense. It brings to bear the exceptional attributes that the U of A has through research and the formulation, proposal, developed and management of major projects in space mission. I mean, the OSIRIS-REx project, I think, is the second mission that NASA has allowed a university to operate. You need infrastructure. You need people like Dr. Larinetta and Dr. Cantwell overseeing these things because they're major operational challenges. GCAPS is a collaborative for global adaptive pandemic solutions. The collaborative the university is establishing. This is a new center with goals to mitigate COVID-19 effects at all levels and to use that knowledge to predict and prepare for next pandemics. We also don't know what the long-term health consequences are of COVID-19. So this center that Dr. Cantwell and Yanko are putting together is going to be tremendous. AIR, the Arizona Institute for Resiliency, brings together a number of university units and programs focused on better understanding environmental challenges and developing solutions that tangibly, real world experience improve people's resilience in the wake of environmental shocks in their everyday life. Next slide, please. We're really focusing our growth in research on making Arizona the resilient state. You've heard Dr. Cantwell talk about this in regard to our thrift investments, health, climate, and environment resilience are all hallmark research areas for the University of Arizona. In health resilience, our aging research, which is incredible. We've got great team and we work well with Banner on this and with ASU. It's targeted not just as living together, but on brain and organ health throughout our lifetimes. That's really, really important as we age. Researchers at the University of Arizona Water and Energy Sustainability Technology, the West Center, where Dr. Pepper does all of his great work, are testing wastewater locally, elsewhere in the state and across the country to track the prevalence of coronavirus in communities and help public health officials prepare for the future. The future of water in arid region like ours may include significantly more water reuse, which we do a great job of recycling water and water recapture. And for virus tracking and understanding viral loads is going to be really critical as a public health strategy in the future. We're building on our land grant status and heritage as an agricultural center of knowledge for Arizona. We're developing agrovoltaics projects just outside Biosphere 2. Agrovoltaics positions novel elevated solar panels over an understory of crops growing under the solar panels, which yield better crops performance and more efficient performance for the solar arrays because of the effect that the plants have on the solar panels and the shade that the panels provide for the plants. So it's a symbiotic relationship that's a win-win. Just announced this morning, Carbon Mapper, a partnership between the U of A, NASA, ASU, and the state of California, is a new nonprofit entity with leadership from both the U of A and ASU that is pioneering a new program to help improve understanding of and accelerate reductions in global methane and carbon dioxide emissions using sensors, satellites, aircraft, and novel data tools. So can we go to the next slide, please? And this is real footage. You can go ahead and play that. And I don't think there's any sound, so I'll provide a little color. Oh, there is sound. Wow. Okay, shut up. I love that video. I'll get to hypersonics in just a second, but I just wanted to comment on that. It's sort of a combination of R.A. McDonald hitting a three-pointer. I wish that last one had gone in because we would have brought back the national, or, sort of a religious experience, in celebration. And as Provost Folks said, Dante has spent 20 years of his life to focus on, 6 seconds of touching down and gathering materials from the asteroid. The university led the OSIRIS-REx mission, which completed that tag touch and go event with the asteroid Bennu on October 20th, 2020. And you've all seen this video. It's made international news. The spacecraft sampling arm used compressed nitrogen gas to stir up the surface of the asteroid, enabling it to collect the sample. And it collected a remarkable amount of asteroid material so that the canister was overflowing. Now, I thought we were going to bring back a big rock. It could be, put inside this Yeti, what we got. But I'm told it's going to be great. It's going to be wonderful. The tag event generated a huge amount of interest, including nearly 8,500 articles worldwide. Earth return cruise began May 10th, 2021, and will last approximately 2 years. And we're all going to be anxiously awaiting out in the desert in Utah somewhere for it to touch down and hopefully not crash down. With the strategic initiative focused on sustaining this level of success as a backdrop, we have our next mission in the pipeline and into NASA for review. So we're going to keep reloading these, and we're just really fortunate to have Dr. Cantwell here. As you know, the mission's principal investigator, Dr. Dante Laranetta of the Lunar and Planetary Laboratory, as I've mentioned many times, was nominated as a Regents professor. So now on to hypersonics. As Regents know, the university's fiscal year 2022 New Economy Initiative request included funding for infrastructure upgrades to the university's wind tunnels for hypersonics, modeling and simulating, as well as funding to expand undergraduate programs directly related to aerospace and defense. Also, graduate and doctoral programs will take advantage of this. Advancing the nation's hypersonics capabilities is a top federal priority, as it should be. And this investment will allow the U of A to compete for billions of dollars in research funding. This is also a great example of how we can amplify our impact through partnerships between the university and corporate partners such as Raytheon. We've worked with Raytheon closely in this area of technological development. Raytheon is engaged in our state's budgetary request this year around growing our hypersonics program and increasing undergraduate programs related to space and defense. Right now, Raytheon is lobbying the UA budget side by side with the university's state relations team for the request outlined on the space and defense section of this year's request. This partnership is a result of the U of A responding to the needs of local private industry in relations to workforce development. I used to ask Taylor Lawrence, what can the university do for Raytheon? Educate, graduate, send us more engineers. So that's our goal. The University of Arizona is one of 4 higher education institutions in the nation positioned to fill the research and workforce needs for the defense industry, specifically related to this area of hypersonics. DoD, Raytheon, and other defense companies have expressed the need for more students graduating with degrees related to hypersonic systems. I'd also note too, we're working, the New Economy Initiative also includes requests for health sciences and our School of Mining, all of which are desperately needing workforce development. Could I have the next slide, please? This one is one that I can't even begin to impress upon you how much it's going to change all of our lives. 20 years from now, we'll look back at this presentation and you'll go, yeah, I remember that guy telling us that quantum networking was going to change our lives. It really is. It's like the investment in the thing called the internet back in 1980. And where would we be today without it? We're extremely honored and proud of the university in leading the Center for Quantum Networks and Optical Science Professor Saigat Gua as principal investigator. This is a 5-year, $26 million grant with an additional 5-year, $24.6 million option that aims to lay the foundation of the future quantum internet. The project places Arizona at the forefront of quantum networking technologies, which are expected to transform all areas of life, but some specifics, certainly in medicine, without question. It's going to affect medicine, finance, data security, artificial intelligence, autonomous systems, and smart devices. But every sector of society is going to be impacted by the quantum internet. Core partners include Harvard, Yale, and MIT. Other partners include Howard University, NAU, UMass Amherst, Oregon, BYU, and the University of Chicago. A key goal of the quantum networking is building a first of its kind campus-wide quantum networking testbed here at the University of Arizona. In addition to bringing researchers together from intellectually and culturally diverse disciplines, the CQN is designed to provide our future quantum engineers and quantum society-ready social scientists with incredible learning opportunities and the chance to work side by side with the world's academic and industrial experts. So this is truly a multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary approach to not only the science behind it, which it's not rocket science, but it's just as fantastic as rocket science, and it will help rocket science. But it also weaves together a fabric of social scientists and humanists and physicians to understand how this future of questions about privacy and the digital divide and things like that will develop. So we're incredibly honored to be the lead institution on this. Next slide, please. So, hopefully, Joaquin always talks about the most successful thing that goes on at Arizona Stadium is the science, not necessarily the football program, but hopefully Coach Fish will get the football program on par with the incredible science that goes on beneath the stands of the east side of the football stadium. On March 5th, the Richard F. Cairns Mirror Lab under the football stadium of the Stewart Observatory began spinning a giant furnace full of melting glass, the first step in casting the sixth of 8.4 meters. That's 27.6 feet in diameter for one of these mirrors. When arrayed together as part of the Giant Magellan Telescope, will form the 24.5 meter diameter primary mirror for the Giant Magellan Telescope. If you haven't been down to see this process, it is truly extraordinary. And we can arrange for a tour. The 7 8.4 segments of the 24.5 meter primary are unique for all mirrors made in the past because of their large size and unique shape, symmetric around the center of the 24.5 meter telescope, so that they can work together to make a truly giant primary mirror. So all of these mirrors are working in concert as one really big mirror to explore the universe. Casting the mirror blank takes approximately 14 months. Grinding and polishing the final shape of the surface takes an additional 3 years. We have to have investment in infrastructure and research. We're constantly cobbling together as President Shelton is out raising money, billions of dollars to support the Giant Magellan Telescope. We've got to keep these people to work. So we have them working down there, but these things take a long time to develop. The Mirror Lab is the only place in the world where mirrors this large can be made. Full stop on that. The only place. It's large enough that we can be working in parallel on several large mirrors at the same time. The Giant Magellan Telescope is currently under construction in Chile's northern region at an altitude of approximately 8,500 feet. I've not gotten to go down there, but I'm told it is a spectacular trip, and I look forward to getting down there. The telescope will see farther into the universe and resolve fine spatial details 10 times the ability of NASA's Hubble Space Telescope. Just think about that for a minute. 10 times better than the Hubble Space Telescope. Than any other optical telescope. Okay, we're getting close to the end here. So next slide, please. This one is one that I wanted to put in sort of at the end because, again, there's so much on the cutting room floor here that I just don't have the time to get to everything. But this one is really important to us, and I think it's phenomenal. This agreement was signed in August of 2019, and I'd really like to acknowledge Trevor Ledbetter, who was an undergrad who came from Kansas, and he got really excited about sustainability, graduated from the U of A, and really runs our sustainability office. And without his incredible tenacity, vision, and leadership, working along with Lisa Rolney and her team and TEP, we could have never gotten this signed. But this agreement was signed back in August. It was approved by the Arizona Corporation Commission in December of 2019. The large-scale renewable energy agreement between the University of Arizona and TEP will come this month. The university will receive half of its grid-based energy from the Oso Grande Wind Project in southeastern New Mexico, and the other half from the Wilmot Energy Center south of Tucson. The agreement mitigates 30% of the University of Arizona's total greenhouse gas emission and entirely eliminates the university's Scope 2 emissions. Those are the admissions that we purchase from utilities. The agreement is also the largest utility university renewable energy partnership in North America. We should all be really proud of the work that not only we did at the university, but also TEP being an incredible partner with us and a great member of Southern Arizona community. Can we go to the next one, please? So one of the critical imperatives outlined by ABOR was to attract students through a university brand marketing effort. I referenced that earlier. Considering our financial situation, launching a national brand campaign just wasn't financially feasible for us. However, a highly targeted brand campaign could yield effective results within our means, and we set out to pinpoint markets with the highest potential and best return on investment. I think that in the 2017, 2018 marketing worked with the foundation and the Alumni Association to identify these key markets. They were California and Texas. Big surprise there. Layering in Casey and her team in admissions and census data, we discovered the very best areas to attract students and develop donors where zip code clusters were mainly in the West. Our key markets, which are in Texas, Arizona, and California, are zip code specific. Our team makes sure our placements are within strategic zip codes rather than spreading ourselves too thin across the entire metropolitan regions of LA or San Francisco or Dallas or Houston. Through research, we learned that we had a reasonable brand in California. So our goal was to drive affinity and increase student interest and alumni support and engagement in other regions. However, our brand was not as well known in the state of Texas. So we were mainly interested in introducing the University of Arizona brand to those markets. We conducted research to better understand how our competitive and peer set of 30 universities positioned themselves and their strengths in these markets. We learned a lot that we are very distinctive, and it was rooted in our affordability, the impact we have, and frankly, our location. We got great weather. Talking to Wildcats across campus in 2019 confirmed what we learned and helped us to determine our game plan, telling students, faculty, staff, and alumni stories that emphasize our distinctiveness, how we were going to be differentiated to all of those families and all of those students who have choice. So could we go to the next slide? After bringing all of our research together, it was clear Arizona was a place where imagination drives resolve. So let's break that down a little bit. We embodied the idea that the impossible is possible. It's at the core of what we approach in everything we do, from our students to our state, and ultimately drives us to explore and to innovate. We aren't just committing to, we're promising to actively engage and cultivate through disruptive solutions. We're going to think big, as Dr. Cantwell likes to say. Research led us to develop our tagline, Wonder Makes Us. Wonder makes us do everything that we do. Position the university as a very human, relatable, welcoming, aspirational education experience. Can I go to the next slide, please? In year one, our goals were to increase awareness of the university in key markets and to increase consideration by prospective students, their families, their friends. Our plan was to activate brand advertising and increase the number of recruiters in our targeted markets. So Casey and Steve Moore work very, very closely together. And when we go out and visit high schools, we've got targeted marketing that supports those visits. The creative campaign focused on 2 faculty and 1 student story of wonder. So we're going to play the video now that features student Phil Evans.
Wonder makes me want more out of myself, makes me want to experience life. If you asked me a year and a half ago if I was going to be in the United States playing basketball at college, I would have told him you're dreaming. You do only live once. I got given a chance to come here, I'm taking it. I'm Phil Evans, and Wonder gave me the hope and the belief that I can achieve anything and I can go anywhere. I was thrown a pretty huge curveball right in my mid-20s. Fell in a bit of a downward spiral post my accident, and depression and anxiety really kicked in. I had a few friends who actually saw me at probably my lowest point. They started a wheelchair basketball team, like a social team. They'd pick me up, force me to play. That's the best thing they've ever done for me, because without that, I was lost. Coming to University of Arizona to study was a way for me to improve my life. And the way I'm playing basketball is I want to be the best out there, so I want to be the best off the court as well. And I think the positivity I'm getting from basketball is helping my positivity in my real life. Whether you do win or lose after the game, you can actually get off the court and look each other in the eye and say, I gave them my all out there for you, and you can do the same for them. That's what I love about it. After I graduate, I reckon the big thing is we'll be giving back to basketball as well. There's lots of programs all around the world to help with wheelchair basketball and just wheelchair sports in general that I'd like to help out there. One that gives me hope that anything's possible in the future.
Well, that's pretty powerful. I would just say that, you know, we talk about being number one in several things, but we're one of the top adaptive athletic programs in the country. And I think that video just exemplifies what many of us here think is a phenomenal. If you've ever spent time around our adaptive athletes, you know, the R.A. McDonald's and the stars out there that get all the recognition are really important. But our adaptive athletics team members are truly remarkable. So year two, we presented a creative challenge. How do we create compelling news stories during the pandemic? Would anybody even care or listen? It was a perfect year for breakthrough ideas in higher educative creativity. We decided to tell our stories using animation to capture the attention and imagination of prospective students. Our news stories range from a first-year Flynn scholar to graduate students and young alumni, showing a wide variety of personal student experiences. We have one animation to share that will give you a sense of how these pieces capture the voice and the individuality of our amazing students and their experiences at the university. Here's a 30 video story of wonder from student Jasmine Windsor, showing the range of her experiences at the university. So could we go to the next slide? I think there's a video. There we go. It's working.
I've seen nature at its purest in the Chiricahuas. I found butterflies in the Tohono Nature Park. Or should I say they found me. I've encountered rattlesnakes in the Sky Islands. Oh, and I also took a class called Blacks in Paris, and then I got to go to Paris. My name is Jasmine Windsor, and wonder makes me search. What will wonder make you?
That's great. Okay, coming down the home stretch here. So this is just an example of how a potential student interacts with the University of Arizona through branding, enrollment marketing, and then ultimately admissions, and then of course, graduation. A student from one of our key markets in Texas sees a Wonder ad online and either clicks on it for more information or searches for the university online. When they click on our ad, they'll go to our new Wonder launch page, landing page, with all of these animated video stories. A feature of that page is the degree search, and visits from new users in Texas is up 105% in this fiscal year to date on these admission-focused pages. I think that's a good return on investment. Next slide, please. The results of the Wonder brand campaign, in conjunction with our enrollment marketing team and our admissions team's efforts, are outstanding. An increase in 21% in applications for out-of-state domestic markets and a 54% increase in applications from Texas in 2021 compared to 2019. Enrollment prospects are up as well, with more than 4,800 more out-of-state prospect students in the pipeline year over year, and 674 more students from Texas in the pipeline in 2021 compared to 2019. As we've discussed with the Regents, this is a key part of the university's future and strategy, and I'm very pleased with the progress our team has made. So next slide, please. And I think this will be the real last one. There's a thank you one at the end, and a little message from me. So looking ahead, what are we going to do? We're excited about the fall 2021. As you know, we're currently providing in-person instruction for classes up to 100 students in a classroom, and we anticipate all in-person courses being back full tilt in the fall. The Higher Learning Commission will conduct a campus visit in just a short couple of weeks. Our team in the provost's office, led by Dr. Gail Bird, this is an every 10-year thing, and you would want no one other than Gail Bird getting us ready for this visit. It reminds me of the Joint Commission showing up in your hospital and going through everything unannounced. At least they've announced to us, we've been getting ready and we are ready. So Higher Learning Commission will be here in a couple of minutes, a couple of weeks, and we're looking forward to them coming through and giving us a 10-year reaccreditation. As I mentioned earlier, our partnership with TEP will bring the university to net zero for Scope 2 emissions, and we're anticipating the return of OSIRIS-REx as I outlined. One thing that missed it from the presentation was an incredible event that we did yesterday with the establishing the France-Arizona Institute with CNRS in Paris. It's sort of the National Science Foundation equivalent in France. This is a very, very big deal, and Dr. Cantwell moderated an incredible hour of Zoom with presentations from scientists and what this means to the future of collaboration in solving big, grand challenges. Particularly, there's great synergy. CNRS has been working in collaboration with the university for a couple of decades, but this agreement that we signed yesterday really codifies and puts us on the world stage as the only institution in the Americas that CNRS is going deep on and collaborating with in a meaningful way to solve a lot of the world's grand challenges, particularly in the environment space and to a certain degree in health. So could I have the last slide? And I would just say thank you all. Remember, mask up, bear down, and go get your vaccination if you hadn't. So I only got one question, and I got to the end here. So any other questions, comments that you have for me?
So do we have comments or questions from the board? I have one.
Okay.
I always seem to have one. Anthony has one as well. Regent Rusk.
Thank you, Chair Manson. I just had a comment. As being a student at the University of Arizona for the last 4 years and graduating in May, it's been an incredible journey seeing what President Robbins has accomplished with his team at the University of Arizona. Seeing the Wonder campaign from its origins to what it is now has been incredible. So I wanted to say thank you to President Robbins for all the work that he has done with his team. None of this would be possible without your leadership. So thank you. Looking forward to graduate and be a U of A alumni.
Regent Rusk, we go way back. Without you coming in there as an undergrad, I think you were finishing your first year, maybe into your second year. And I know you were going to go on to great things because there were tenured faculty members there talking about general education. And then there was Regent Rusk. He was before he was a regent. He was just Anthony back in those days. But you provided incredible input and guidance and helped us get to where we are on general education reform at the University of Arizona. And I also want to thank you and all the other regents because without your input and guidance and advice, in about an hour, I wouldn't be able to stand in the center of McHale and announce our new basketball coach. So thank you all for that.
Regent Schutman.
I just wanted to add that it was a terrific presentation, Dr. Robinson. One of the things that was a real problem for the University of Arizona prior to Dr. Robbins coming here was engagement locally, engagement at all levels of this community. And that has completely turned around. Thanks to that engagement, this hypersonic project, which I happen to know a little bit more about because of its impact on our ability to defend ourselves as a nation. This is top drawer critical stuff. And that's taking place because of the outreach done by Dr. Robbins and his team, something that didn't always happen at the U of A before he got here. So it's a terrific presentation. It's uplifting. I enjoyed it thoroughly. But most of all, Dr. Robbins, I want to thank you for living up and even remembering what Bill and I asked you to do when we first met with you. But you're doing a terrific job, and couldn't be prouder of being here in Wildcat Country with you.
Thank you, Regent Schutman. I just say, again, so much every day. There's another thing that I learn about this great university, and I'm humbled and blessed to be able to be here. So I thank you all for taking a chance on me. But one of the things that got cut was the incredible effort that we're doing globally. And, Brent White and Provost Foltz are leading that effort. And I think I get time with you tomorrow for a couple of hours to talk to you about our plan for the state, the nation, and the world. And so we'll get some of that to you tomorrow.
Thank you. So I see a number of hands going up. So I'm going to do Regent Duval, Regent Reignauer, followed by Regent Mata and Regent Dave. So Regent Duval.
Perfect. Thank you, Madam Chair and President Robbins. Just wonderful. I want to start by building on Regent Schutman's comment about engagement. Clearly that's the case in Tucson, but let me also add it's the case in Phoenix. And the work you're doing at the legislature and with the Phoenix community has really, been paying dividends. And hopefully we'll see that in the session in many ways. I think we already have to some extent, but thank you for that. Obviously the research is fantastic, but I want to sort of do shout outs in two specific areas, which were towards the back of your slide deck, but very important to me. And I think increasingly important to our country and to our state and culture. Your work around access, diversity, inclusion is coming strong. The United States really expects leadership in that area to make sure that people feel as though they have equal opportunity in all walks of life, both coming into your institution, teaching your institution, and really appreciate that. You may have seen AGB, whose board I serve on as part of the conference this week, has put out a very strong statement about higher education's role in this space. And the work you're doing will reflect well in that regard. And then secondly, around climate, which other regents know is a personal passion of mine. And as you know, I've spent a great deal of time with the sustainability officers at all three universities to kind of get up to speed on where we are. And this issue is coming at us as a existential issue, to be sure, but make no doubt it is coming to us around our bond issues. It's coming to us around federal government policy, et cetera. And so what you've done with TEP, all three institutions are really globally and nationally recognized in this space, but the TEP project is something that I hear about in other states and from regents in other states, and just want to tell you how much I appreciate the leadership in the climate space.
Thank you. Regent Ridenour.
Thank you. Just a quick, if you could kind of, first of all, you're making Regent Schupman and myself look like geniuses. You are the right person at the right time to lead the University of Arizona. But if you were to go back memory lane here a little bit for the last 3.5 years, where do you think there is progress still yet to be made? And where do you think you've exceeded all expectations in moving the University of Arizona forward?
Well, Regent Ridenour, I think that we've got work to do in every aspect. Every day we have to get up and work harder because we can always do better. Certainly, I think that in fundraising and the endowment, I feel a lot more confident we're going to hit that $1 billion research expenditure probably before we hit $2 billion endowment. But JP Wozniak and I are, we've got a lot of people that have really gotten engaged with the university. And so I think the fundraising is gonna continue to grow now that we can get back out on the road, because it really makes a difference, as you well know, spending time personally with people. Dr. Cantwell keeps kind of pulling the bit in my mouth by saying, whoa, we're going to get there. But unless we dramatically grow our faculty or switch our strategies to what I think is absolutely a sound strategy going forward to continue to go after these big projects, while at the same time going after the investigator-initiated sort of R01 type, using NIH lingo type of awards, because that fundamental discovery is so important. We still have a lot of work to do with diversity, inclusion, and equity, and I'm grateful to President Chang for letting Dr. Banks come down off the hill and join us here at the University of Arizona. She and Dr. Franco are making tremendous strides, but we've got a lot to do with the diversity, inclusion, and equity clearly at the university, and we are committed to investment and working on that. Obviously, Banner is a big part of why you asked me to come here. I understand that. I think we're actually making good progress with Banner. We've had some headwinds, obviously, over the 5 years of this agreement, but I'm optimistic that better days are ahead of us. And certainly, just like with the university and the many different diverse opinions we have across the university, we may have our disagreements and in different ways that things should go. But this pandemic has caused all of us to come together and work more closely. And that's certainly true with Banner. And we look forward to brighter days in the future with our healthcare partner. But that's one we got to continue to constantly work on. I think both the deans of our colleges of medicine are doing great jobs. And I'm appreciative to our Banner partners for for working with us, especially through this last year of the pandemic.
Thank you. Regent Mata?
Thank you, Regent Mason. Dr. Robbins, I'm probably the newest regent, but I don't feel that way. But this is my comments, and I want to tell you that I have found diversity in the workforce at U of A, starting with your office. And I never felt so part of that inclusion, because finding diversity, although we have a lot to do, this is one of the things that will make the diversity, just starting from our own workforce at U of A, make a big difference. And having a lot of, first generation, because I talked to some of the staff and they're first generation with higher education. So that's one of the things that I really impressed me. And this is one of the common. The other thing is I always talk to Provost Folks, and she can tell that I always ask the question about engagement working with corporations to develop our workforce. And that's one of the things in your presentation that you have emphasized, which is greatly something that I wanted to see in our community, because it's always keeping our workforce in Arizona. And this is something that I say, this is great because we're working with the corporations, locally. And the third one that I wanted to say, thank you, because yesterday I spent, even though sometimes it's an interruption when you do Zoom, I really focus on the global team of scientists with the CNRS and U of A. That is fantastic. And I think that I sent you an email that, I hope that we can do some changes in the global climate, because as you, Regent Duval, I'm also very worried about our climate and thinks this is something that will enhance, will enforce, and at the global level, U of A is going to be part of these changes. So this is just a comment that I wanted to give you, and I really appreciate all the work that you have done and getting to know you for the last, since August in a different, perspective, because I always was an outsider, from U of A. Now I'm inside. So I really, really I'm impressed with all the changes that we're making. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Regent Mata. It's impressive to me that you watched that. We should get a copy of it, John, and send to the regents. It's a big, big deal. And without the leadership of Provost Folks and Dr. Cantwell and Professor Ferrer, and really Joaquin Ruiz, he was a big part of all this, but it takes all of a team working together, and it's gonna play big dividends going forward, no question.
Just one more comment. I got lost when he started President Petit started talking in French. That was the only part, but it was fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you. Regent Dave.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, President Robbins, again, for your presentation and for your leadership. I just wanted to say thank you to, again, you, but also Dr. Cantwell, Dr. Folks, Barry Brumman, for the incredible work you guys do and the research enterprise of the U of A. I mean, hearing about such a spread of high impact work across so many different disciplines, like the mirror casting, for example, but then, to COVID-19, to OSIRIS-REx. It's fascinating and really exciting. And I'm looking forward to see the University of Arizona's research portfolio continue to grow. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Dave. I am going to be really sad when Regent Rusk leaves, but I think he's done a really good job helping get you prepared. And clearly the pandemic and basketball crises and other things, you're tested by fire. So you'll be able to pay it forward and help to mentor the next student regent that comes on. It's been a fantastic opportunity going from I didn't do a very good job of convincing you when you were a Flynn to come to the U of A, and President Crow, you can't go wrong there with him, but it's been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you. Regent King.
Yes, thank you, Chair Manson. And President Robbins, I just wanted to take 1 minute. I joined the board in March of 2020, and that's when COVID was hitting us. It was a very obviously an unusual time, unprecedented time. And at the time, I didn't understand. I was new to all of this, why it was so important to have somebody like you, a physician, an MD, leading at the helm of a university. And now more than ever, I want to commend you on everything you've done, and many of the comments I agree with, but I just want to specifically note, I think it's been really critical having somebody like you in the position at University of Arizona at this specific time. Just the things you've done with the wastewater testing, the all of the research and testing and vaccinations. It's just been really critical in really carrying forward and succeeding in this time when many other universities are, they aren't succeeding in the way that the University of Arizona is, throughout the country. But U of A has just done an excellent job in large part to your leadership. So yeah, it's wonderful having somebody with your background and experience and at the helm of the university at this time. So just want to commend you on that.
Thank you, Regent Keene. I would just say that, this is the truth that, all of this happened not because of me. It's because of the incredibly talented people like the Deepta Bhattacharya's and the Ian Peppers and Provost Folks was all over this early. Mike Dake has done an incredible job. As I said, Dr. Cantwell kept our research labs going because she got policies, procedures, disciplines, and they were followed. So this is really a celebration of all the people. It really had nothing to do with me. And as I told Provost Folks many times, my MD degree has meant less than ever before in my whole career, because everybody who wasn't an ND was telling me how I didn't know anything and, let us get this and we know better about this. And I go, well, I actually know a little something about this topic. At least they weren't telling me how to do heart surgery, but some of them probably could. But my job is to celebrate all of what we just celebrated in that very small snippet. And I'm appreciative to everyone who helped put those slides together, because I've been a little defocused on other things for the last week or 10 days. And so the team put that together, but there's so much that we didn't get to include. And my job is to take all the blame when things go wrong. Celebrate all of the accomplishments of the people who do the real work, steal their slides and brag on them. And when things go wrong, no matter what it is, then for me to take the blame. That's kind of my job, and I love it.
Well, President Robbins, I think most people have said what I was looking to say, but I do want to say you're incredibly humble, and it is a sign of a very, very good leader to surround themselves with exceptional individuals. And you have obviously done that. And it was a very, very great pleasure to see the progress that has been made at the U of A over the last year or so, even in the midst of the pandemic. So just want to add my thanks to that and congratulate you and your team on bringing us up to speed, and a job well done.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is the end of it, but usually I don't get to see President Chang and President Crow hanging around for these things. But I just want to say, because this may be the last the Zoom, because I don't know, Rita, if you're going to be there in June when we actually did get to come there, but I'm losing track of things. But I just really appreciate everything that President Chang has done for me, being the newbie. And she's just been a tremendous colleague. And is we can go more deeply into the story, but I certainly would not be here in Arizona if it weren't for President Crow. I had the privilege to work with him for a year before coming here. We can get into all the details, and we don't have to get into the privacy of what goes on between President Crow and me, but he called me this past week when I was I was in some choppy water out there. And Michael, I really appreciate that.
Happy to be here. The Regents let me have a cell phone.
I'm not sure that was an option. All righty. Well, thank you very much, President Robbins. We do need to move on, and our next item on the agenda is the Student Regent Report and the Basic Needs Update, and I believe we have Regent Rusk and Regent Dave for that.
Thank you, Chair Manson. The last time we actually gave a basic need updates, we spoke after Regent Duval. This time we get the pleasure of speaking after President Robbins. So it seems that Nikhil and I are plagued with always having to speak after extremely talented orators. So we have a quick update for you all today. We had planned on doing the actual basic needs report, discuss what our surveys had talked about, but Nikhil will talk a little bit about how our timeline has shifted. So today we're going to be giving an update as to what we've been doing in the last couple of months, what the future timeline looks like, and tee up what the June meeting will look like for the basic needs report. Before we actually get into this update as a whole, Nikhil and I wanted to express our deepest thank yous to the working group members, to the Basic Need Coalition at the University of Arizona, to Mark Danke at the board for all the support, in particular Lucas at the University of Arizona, who has really put our entire group on track to complete the basic needs survey, to complete this report. So none of this would be possible without any of those members. So thank you to all of them, and let's go ahead and get started. So if you get the next slide. Thank you. So just a recap on the overall purpose of what we're trying to do with the Basic Needs Survey and what this entire mission is aiming to do. So we are assessing the scope of the student food insecurity and housing needs. This is an important part of the university's structure and mission because a big piece of why students are unable to continue at universities, or a big piece of why students do not think that university is feasible for them, is the accessibility of the university itself. So if we can assess the scope, we can understand what those food insecurity and housing needs look like. And from there, we can continue from the infrastructure to understand what are the existing best practices around the country from different universities, and how can we best implement those into our very own universities and understand how we can best assist those students. Well, essentially what we're aiming to do is a data-based approach. So we're taking the data from the survey that we've put out in March and understanding what that data tells us to make sure that we are using what students need and best using the ROI on every dollar spent to support our students. So from that, we're looking at what does a campus-based policies look like, what can the board take on for policies, and what programs will best help our students in terms of accessibility at our universities. This is important for two reasons. One, it'll help the existing status quo of students who are at our universities, and two, it'll function as an encouragement for students to come to the universities. What we aim to say here is that this is a tri-pronged approach in enrollment, retention, and attainment. So this is a huge project for the universities and for the Arizona Board of Regents to take on. Lastly, we're going to take a look at what are the current board policies regarding what does it look like for students with basic needs. And while this is not entirely board policies, but rather the individual university policies, what are the individual universities currently doing in the status quo to ensure that students are taken care of? And how can we best improve that pipeline to make sure the students who came in who aren't sure if they'd be able to graduate can continue from their freshman year to their senior year and attain at one of our 3 in-state universities. And so our next slide, Nikhil will talk a little bit about what the survey looks like.
Absolutely. So before I begin too, I'd like to echo the same thanks that Regent Rusk gave to the universities, to the board staff, particularly Mark Danke, as well as to the regents for their support in this. So as we work to confirm, as Anthony mentioned, we do have a few brief changes in the timeline. Originally, we were planning on administering the survey in February, getting the results at the end of March, and then having policy recommendations then. But due to a shift in the timeline, as well as in our effort to provide a more detailed overview of the data, what we will be doing is we'll be delivering our results and policy recommendations during the board meeting in June. Now with that, ASU will share their results from their fall 2020 administration of the Real College Survey, while NAU and U of A will develop and administer a survey that has been actually administered this March. And one thing that's important to note here is that we have performed a crosswalk between the Real College Survey ASU is using and the surveys that U of A and NAU are using to ensure that we will be able to integrate and cross-reference the data. So then finally, The primary questions that these surveys will be answering are to support the goals that Anthony just previously mentioned. One, what food insecurities and housing insecurities are students experiencing within universities? And then two, of course, what policies or practices can we come up with to address some of these basic needs issues? And so Anthony will discuss in the next slide some of the survey measures.
So to discuss a little bit more in depth as to what the survey looks like without giving you exactly the questions themselves, a lot of the measures that we're using are derived from already best practices in surveying what basic needs look like. So for example, one of the questions is regarding food security, and this comes from the USDA. So the question is, in the past 12 months, have you done one of the following things? So one of them could be, have you not eaten a meal or skipped a meal because you don't have enough money to pay for the meal? Another question that comes from the USDA is, have you in the past year skipped a meal or skipped eating for an entire day because you could not afford to eat in that day? So a lot of these questions will give us an idea as to what food security looks like. So to follow along with that, and we'll go more in depth with this in June, it's divvied up from high levels of food security down to low levels of food security. And so students with very low food level security is what we're looking for to help those students. They're the most at-risk students, while high level of food security are students who have 3 square meals a day, don't have an issue with paying for food, and we have no concerns with what would be happening with them. So then housing security, we took the question from the University of California Board of Regents and how they assess housing insecurity. And so they asked their students, in the past 12 months, have you lived at an Airbnb? Have you lived in a homeless shelter? Have you been couch surfing? And the list goes on. So we're trying to make sure that that housing insecurity, because there is no real definition of what housing security looks like, that we've taken our best approach to make sure that all of the answers are inclusive of what a student experience might be. Are you living in your car? Are you couch surfing? Are you going to a friend's mom's house somewhere else outside of the university? A lot of these things can look like housing insecurity. And so we want to make sure that we're giving our students enough options. And thirdly, when we talk about retention, enrollment, and attainment, one of the biggest things that comes to that is the academic concerns related to basic needs. So the goal behind this is to see, of the students who have listed that they have food insecurity or housing insecurity, how does that connect with their GPA? Are students who are experiencing high levels of food insecurity experiencing lower GPAs compared to their counterparts who have high levels of food security? And what does that look like? And so along with that, one of the other items is we're looking at how many hours per week students are actually working. So even if a student doesn't have food insecurity, but is working 40, 50 hours a week, how does that affect their GPA? So by increasing their ability to meet their basic needs, are they hereby destroying their ability to be successful as a student at the universities? And then going along with that, we also understand that basic needs is not just, or food and housing insecurity is not just one and done. This is a thing that has a lot of externalities. So a student is experiencing high levels of basic need insecurity, is also likely going to experience mental health issues with anxiety, depression, stress. And so some of our questions asked, in the past year, how often have you had to deal with managing job responsibilities? How often have you had to deal with anxiety or depression? And how has it affected their GPA? And so on the back end of all of the surveys that we're asking, it's attached to the GPAs of those students. Now, those students themselves will remain anonymous, but we still get to see what the GPA is, so we can look at the correlation of how we can best assist those students to increase their GPA while meeting their basic needs. Next is kind of understanding the perception of campus culture stigmatization. So one of the biggest issues that comes to basic needs addressing is, how do students see going to the campus pantry or going and getting help from an advisor? And so working on the stigma on campus to help with, maybe we do a marketing campaign to help students understand that they can get help, that it's not a bad thing that if you come to the university and things have changed, maybe over the course of the pandemic, you lost a job and now you need help. So seeing what does the campus culture look like? And so some of the questions that you ask are something like, somebody like me does not use services like those. And so we're trying to understand, what do students see as the perception of basic needs help? And now looking also at the use of existing resources and services. So at the University of Arizona, for example, we have the campus pantry, we have Fostering Success, and we have the Thrive Center. And so for example, some students may use those resources, but for the majority of students who do not use those resources, what are the reasons for why you don't? Is it that you don't know where the resources are? Is it that you don't know how to access those resources? And so that is a big help on how we can start building some of those policies and best practices. Can we put the resources somewhere where students can find them more easily in the next steps area, or any sort of opportunities for those policy recommendations? And then lastly, again, the barriers to using those resources is that you can't drive to a Safeway to get food. Is it that you can't get to the campus pantry? What are the reasons that students aren't using the currently already existing practices so that we can develop and make sure that those resources are better put to use for our students and the student body? And so next, Nikhil will kind of close us out a little bit here. And so if we could get the next slide, please.
Thank you, Anthony. So again, to remain consistent with the brevity of our recent student regent reports, we will end with a brief kind of synopsis of what our next steps are. So as I mentioned previously, our results are being collected now from the surveys at the three respective universities. They'll be synthesized for the work group to identify data-informed policies and practices that will eventually help us in our goal of course, providing the universities with recommendations and ways we can address student food and housing needs. And then finally, we will develop a summary, we being the work group, that's we're expected to share during the June board meeting, as I mentioned before. And this summary will, again, summarize a lot of the work, the data that we've collected through this process, as well as the policy recommendations that come with this data for the three universities. And so we're really looking forward to sharing that with you all. And I guess we'll close by saying, first of all, thank you once again to the universities, the board staff, and the regents. And if there are any questions, we welcome them.
So are there any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I thank you both. And I see Regent Duvall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a little bit late on the draw. First, I want to say, boy, this totally illustrates the value of having student regents. I mean, the ability to look under the hood the way you guys have and shine a light on this is just something that isn't, in our normal information flow. And so a real shout out to sort of taking this on because of your unique standing. And, this board is appropriately so focused on retention. And my God, you've really shown a light on one of the drivers of retention that we really need to understand. So well done. I'm really impressed that you guys are doing a multi-year strategy. And I guess what I'm hearing is that in June, we will get the data around the dynamics of what's causing the issues, how students are feeling it, how it's impacting them. But what I do hope we can do, particularly Regent Russ, because this has been your brainchild and your focus, is how do we land it in our work? Where do we put it? How do we internalize it? How do we make it sustainable? How do we get the universities into this mix in a way that it's not exactly sort of lend itself to one of the new metrics, but it does lend itself to ongoing work because it's a driver of student success. It's a driver of retention. It's fundamental to what we do. So I hope our June conversation goes beyond data to how do we create institutional sustainability about the great work you've done.
Thank you, Regent Duvall. And in points to your points about retention, I think we are one of the few university systems that's really taking a deep look at what does the student experience look like beyond the statistics that we see of retention and attainment. And this is going to be such a huge driver for why students will pick ASU or U of A and NAU, because they realize that they can not only come to the universities, but they can come to the universities and not struggle as much as they would at another university system. And so we're really thought leaders at this sort of venue, and to see what we'll be able to do in June will be extremely exciting. And yes, to follow up, we will be talking about what are some of the ideas for making sure this is an institutionalized part of what the universities do, what the Arizona Board of Regents do from year to year. And if the regents see it as fit, I hope that this becomes a part of our yearly infrastructure to ensure that the student experience is what we want the students to have. And to make sure that any student who comes to the university system can achieve their dreams, regardless of their socioeconomic backgrounds.
Thanks very much. I think that's very appropriate. As we look towards metrics that include the student experience, I think that this certainly would be a subset of that data. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what all you have, what the conclusions you come to in your June report and how we move forward with those. So thank you both. Any additional comments, questions from the board? Then we are going to move on to our final item today for the public meeting, and that is the report from the Arizona Faculty's Council and Dr. Summers.
Thank you, Chair Mason. Good afternoon, Regents, Presidents, ABOR staff, and guests. Representatives from the University Senate leadership from U of A, ASU, and NAU met yesterday to discuss several issues of shared concern among our respective faculties at Arizona's public universities. We held our Arizona Faculty's Council meeting via Zoom and were joined by Dr. Helen Baxendale and Dr. Mark Denke from the ABOR office. We're grateful for the valuable insights and information they brought to our conversations yesterday. We are also thankful to the University of Arizona Faculty Center staff member Jane Cherry for hosting the Zoom meeting and taking notes. In reference to today's board agenda, Arizona Faculty's committee members are very encouraged by the work of the board and board staff to generate the first official report on retention data at all three universities, representing fiscal year 2020 first-year, first-time students. Major findings included slight declines in first-year full-time enrollment retention at ASU and NAU, with a 2.5% increase at U of A, increases in first-year part-time enrollment retention at ASU and NAU with stacked numbers at U of A, and lower retention rates at all three universities for first-year online students with much greater rates of online first-year enrollment at ASU. The AFC recognizes the need for ongoing efforts to increase retention of first-year students in all learning modalities in order to be on par with our comparison universities, particularly for students who identify as racial and ethnic minorities, Pell-eligible students, and first-generation students, although this last metric was not part of the report. This is an excellent opportunity for us to share the Association of Governing Boards of Universities and Colleges Board of Directors statement on justice, equity, and inclusion, and guidance for implementation as a way forward on improved recruitment and retention initiatives at all three institutions. This is also, I think, a possible guide for discussion at our resumed faculty breakfast this fall, and I will put a link for the report in the chat in just a minute. Faculty at NAU are particularly excited about the promise of renewed transparency, equity, and inclusion under incoming President Jose Luis Cruz. Dr. Cruz has engaged a transition commission comprised of faculty, staff, students, and community members to identify strengths, values, and what his first 6 months as president should look like. And we look forward to seeing NAU added to the list of Hispanic serving institutions in Arizona now that they meet the guidelines for application. There are also new and exciting initiatives for diversity, equity, and inclusion at the provost and vice provost levels at ASU and U of A that are worth mentioning, with new personnel engaging faculty, students, and staff on these critical issues that we hope will improve the transparency and growth of our respective diversity profiles. And I'm going to put that link to the AGB report in the chat for those of you who are interested in following up. Again, I think this would be a great topic for our upcoming faculty breakfast. Hopefully we can meet in person again soon. This past year, many of the faculty represented on AFC have seen the value of being part of new working groups established by the universities to address and mitigate COVID-related issues. These committees and working groups included members of university administration, faculty, staff, and students, and were convened to discuss critical issues related to enrollment, finance, planning, and new opportunities, to name a few. The faculty are heartened to see how, through a shared governance approach to problem solving, these enhanced communication channels developed to address the issues that vexed us. We hope for continued interactions with shared governance as the organizing principle as we plan and pivot to address the collateral impacts of COVID on recruitment, retention, and persistence initiatives. Relative to these issues, we understand that the fiscal year 2020 data reflect their pre-COVID status and look forward to seeing how they compare to what we hope will be a more normal instructional and operational context in the coming years. We applaud the inclusion of part-time student data and discussed ways that we can capture the part-time student market with innovative new programs to satisfy both market demand and intellectual expertise of Curtin faculty, as well as meet the needs of different populations of residential and non-residential students. We look forward to continued conversations at our respective institutions about how to best serve Arizona students and beyond in this new age of post-COVID education, and look forward to continued data sharing and facilitation with ABOR as an independent broker of ideas. We appreciate the board working with the provosts on committee day to think about long-term educational opportunities in Maricopa County as one of the fastest growing population centers of the country. Based on a graphic shared by Dr. Baxendale at our meeting yesterday, this is clearly an underserved area with regard to educational institutions and/or programs per capita when compared with other urban centers, which requires all 3 universities to work on developing strategic plans for serving this area of our state. The faculty are excited and encouraged by the board's supportive enterprise at all 3 universities to build initiatives in Maricopa County, and look forward to having formal plans presented to ABOR at future meetings. Additional areas of discussion included the outcome of the recent tuition hearings, specifically that no new tuition increases are planned for in-state undergraduate tuition. While this is clearly significant for our Arizona residents, there will be fiscal gaps as a result that will need to be covered by state appropriations in fiscal year 22 and beyond. We are looking to the state legislature to invest in our students, our communities, and our state by allocating permanent funds to support both recovery measures and our institution's long-term needs, including support for the New Economy Initiative. Faculty have risen to the many challenges presented by the COVID pandemic, which included rapidly switching to online courses and remote learning while meeting the needs of students and helping them to navigate the pandemic. The task of handling these changes to curriculum and to course structure in summer 2020 fell largely to non-tenure track teaching faculty, most of whom were not compensated for the countless hours dedicated toward this effort. This is a testament to the way that faculty were willing to work above and beyond in service to our students. We ask our administrators, the board, and the legislature to consider ways to show appreciation for faculty's uncompensated efforts and our commitment to education in Arizona. Faculty bear this sense of responsibility, which has taken its toll on our well-being, relationships, and self-care. We suggest that concurrent and future changes to educational models be developed with an analysis of change management at each of the 3 state institutions, with reward structures built in to facilitate efforts of educational innovation. Finally, we would like to thank our respective county and state of Arizona health departments for the mutual cooperation with all 3 universities to efficiently and effectively roll out a vaccine program that now includes residents 16 and older at many vaccination sites. The universities have played an important part in sharing the responsibility of vaccinating our communities, and we recognize this collaboration as an essential feature of the way our institutions contribute to our communities. Faculty are very much looking forward to serving students in person, on campus, and our full capacity as teachers, mentors, and advisors this fall, particularly as we support the CDC and other federal government agency goals towards herd immunity. However, the proposed legislative bill that would prevent the requirement of COVID vaccine by employers and prevent campuses from incentivizing community vaccination severely limits our ability to confidently return to work in the fall 2021 semester. The AFC encourages the board and university presidents to respond in a way that continues to protect faculty, students, staff, and our communities. We prefer, if possible, a COVID-19 vaccine requirement for all incoming residential students. Universities can and should continue to serve as leaders in community vaccination efforts while researching the impact of emerging variants and the public health implication of vaccine hesitancy. Colleagues who have volunteered at vaccination sites have experienced deep satisfaction in their contributions and have felt, seen, and heard the outpouring of appreciation and joy from those who are vaccinated. Seeing our institutions tangibly contribute to the public good is powerful medicine, and we believe this level of community engagement should continue as much as possible for the safety and well-being of our communities and the state of Arizona. As we have done before, AFC would also like to applaud the student regents for their engagement in and commitment to basic needs of Arizona students through the Basic Needs Work Group. This concludes my report from the Arizona Faculty's Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Summers. Are there any questions or comments from the board? So our final, before we conclude the public session, I wanted to ask Regent Taylor Robeson to take a few minutes to give us an update on the upcoming Regents Cup event, which is scheduled for April 23rd and 24th. You're on mute, Karen. There you go.
Sorry about that. Famous last words. You're on mute. Yes, we are very excited for the second Regents Cup competition, which, as Regent Manson said, is going to be held April 23rd and 24th. ASU is hosting this year, and ASU is also the defending Regents Cup champion. But all three universities and their teams are working hard. The ABOR staff has been working particularly hard because this year's competition will be virtual. But we have some pretty exciting things going on in addition to the competition. In particular, we have a keynote speaker, Professor Keith Whittington, who is the William Nelson Cromwell Professor of Politics at Princeton University. He is also the author of Speak Freely, Why Universities Must Defend Free Speech. His book won the Prose Award for the best book in education, and it is now required reading for all incoming students at Princeton University. He will be joined by Robert Shibley, who is the Executive Director of the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, also known as FIRE. And I would be remiss to not point out once again that all three of Arizona's universities have earned FIRE's highest green light rating for free speech. And Arizona has become the only state in the nation where all of our public colleges have earned the green rating. So we have a lot to be proud of, and the Regents Cup will allow us to showcase some of our best students, and may the best team win. Thank you, Regent Manson.
Thank you very much. I'm very much looking forward to this. So this is the conclusion of the public session of the board's April meeting. We are scheduled to reconvene in executive session at 1:30 today for the items on its executive session agenda, and then we'll reconvene again tomorrow morning for the remaining items on the executive session agenda. If you would please sign out of this Zoom link, and at 1:30 use the executive session Zoom link that you were provided. If you need that link again, please ask Suzanne Templin and she will send it to you. So thank you all very much for an incredibly productive meeting, and the board is now in recess.